Roll call.
Mr. Christensen. Mr. McGregor.
Here.
Mr. Modrak.
Here.
Mr. Nagel.
Here.
Mrs. Roll. Mr. Scalzo.
Here.
Mr. Spacuzza.
Present.
Mrs. Turner.
Here.
Mrs. Dobos.
Here.
8 members present.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to have a presentation about our reopening plan. Dr. D'Imperio.
Thank you, Mrs. Dobos. On behalf of the district, I would like to sincerely thank all of those parents and community members who have expressed their gratitude and appreciation to us for all of the countless hours for exploring the options of opening the Bethel Park School District for the 2020-21 school term. Needless to say, our overriding consideration in returning students and staff to school is school safety. Planning for the opening of the school has two components, the academic component and the health and safety component. It is the health and safety component that has been a continuing challenge in finalizing our planning process. I want to also address parents and other residents who have expressed their concerns about announcing a plan of full return to school last week and then changing that plan to a remote start with hybrid instruction to follow and finally to open fully when with an online option. When we surveyed parents, the majority favored a full return to school. We were so pleased to see that and selected that option. Our planning, which began back in late May or early June, then focused on a full return to school. When we announced that plan of the full return, we began to receive many communications from parents stating that that did not appear to be the wisest and safest thing to do at this time. Also, Allegheny County modified its plan for a full return to school. Therefore, the district believes it is in the best interest of all involved that we pursue a scaffold opening of introducing the students to school with an online remote learning model for a short period of time, then moving towards a hybrid model of dividing the student number, the number of students in the student numbers in half to satisfy and accommodate social distancing on buses, classrooms, and public spaces in our buildings and hallways and cafeterias, with the ultimate goal of returning all children to school in person as soon as possible. I know that there are some or many parents that may be disappointed, as we are. But keep in mind, we cannot compromise the safety, welfare of your children by moving too quickly, or even if it means making last-minute adjustments. Thank you for your continued support.
Mr. Villani, you're going to go through the school opening plan for us. At this time, we'll allow you to go through the whole thing, and then we'll ask any questions that we have afterwards so that you can get through it. And Mr. Ryer, you have that up on the screen then, right? Okay, because on the boardroom, it just shows all of you over there. So, okay, as long as this is up on the screen. Thank you, Mr. Villani.
Thank you, Mrs. Dobos. Thank you, school board. It's truly my honor and privilege to present this plan tonight. And while I was selected to present the plan, this is the culmination of much hard work by our whole administrative team with months and months of planning and tireless effort in producing this. When we come and look at the school reopening plan, to reiterate what Dr. D'Imperio said, our goal is and always will be to get students back to full-time instruction as soon as possible. When we evaluated these options and we explored the different paths with the guidelines from Allegheny County, the CDC, and other factors, we looked at the options in 3 options, 1 full, 1 hybrid, 1 remote. Tonight, as you can see in this plan, and we explore the background, we're presenting a plan for the school board to evaluate and hopefully approve that gives our students, our teachers, our faculty, and our community members the best educational opportunity in the safest conditions to return. So while this PowerPoint has been up and for many to review, I hope to highlight some of these key points, hopefully answer many of the questions. I know a lot of those questions have been shared with the board, which have been shared with the administration, and have been a part of all the consideration and the efforts that went to crafting this plan. Again, when we evaluated our plan and we presented the full reopen plan, we went further down into the protocols. We looked at certain criteria with social distancing and the opportunity. And as noted in this bullet here, while it's not possible to mitigate 100% of the risk, we do want to ensure that when we do have students return into our building, that we provide a safe environment and that we've looked and addressed many of the factors as we could. You know, since March 13th, it's been almost 5 months that we've been in our traditional school. When we originally started the first 2-week closure and then it got extended, there was much uncertainty. It really threw us off from everything we had known and become used to. Things we took for granted, as just going into public places, being with our families, going on vacation, all of a sudden was all taken from us. We had a senior class last year, talking from my perspective of the high school, that missed out on a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of news out there, obviously, with the pandemic. There's numbers, and different states have different challenges. Different areas of those states are at different places. When we returned for the distance learning last spring, we had faculty meetings with our staff. At that time, there was many unknown factors. There was many things that were up in the air. There was things that were new. There were things that nobody was prepared for. When we opened that meeting, we said it's very easy to go down a road right now to point fingers and to say, and to try to find the things that are wrong. Yes, things are going to be different, but it does not mean that they can't be better. So while we're at a time now where we have to evaluate and modify how we access and do certain things, as I said then, and as I'll say tonight, this becomes an opportunity. It could be something that divides us, or it could be an opportunity. It could be an opportunity for us to reconnect with our community, to communicate. I think those processes have already happened because much communication has been contributed to making this plan. I think when we support each other, we might find that we develop new resources and ways of our students accessing their learning and getting value from the instructional programs at Bethel Park School District. As we start reviewing this plan tonight, I'd like to highlight some of the goals and strategies. The primary goal among all this will be to safely return students to the classroom as soon as possible. In order to do that, we have to be able to ensure that all educational stakeholders are engaging in a safe environment. And finally, the third goal, which is crucial, is that academic portion. We need to provide and create an educational product that, regardless of the option, whether a student chooses to attend school fully remotely, in the hybrid format, or eventually comes back to school, that the product and the educational system that we give our students is top-notch. In this plan, we have some new and different ways that we hope to provide this. As we look at our strategies, we need to continue to follow a detailed BPSD COVID safety plan. Obviously, we're going to continue to adhere to the safety and health guidelines that have been put out. And as you're going to see in a slide very shortly, we need to slowly increase our student staff destiny to ensure that when we get to the point where we fully reopen, that we can maintain that and ensure the safety of all those who enter in the building. There's many mixed reviews in how to do this. When you look at neighboring districts, it's easy to compare. Allegheny County released new and additional guidelines yesterday to kind of help guide these decisions. But at the same time, it's very easy to say, well, let's return and see what happens. Unfortunately, as administrators, as board members elected to represent, we have a responsibility to the safety of students. As the administration evaluated this, we looked at trying to create classroom density in a safe and responsible way. We've had some ongoing activities this summer. We've established protocols for athletics and our marching band that just started back to full camp yesterday. We have different protocols in safety distancing. As we test these measurements and we enact these protocols that we have put in our plans, it gives us greater confidence to make those decisions, as opposed to fully reopening and then having to revert or jeopardize our long-term plans in that. So while this classroom density chart shows a general timeline, the recommendation is to start virtually with a transition to hybrid coming in October, and with a full return listed as January 4th. But if conditions persist or conditions allow us to do that earlier, we will certainly explore that. As you see indicated in the bottom of the presentation, at that time with the Allegheny County guidance, with our return and phase into school, if the conditions permit us to return to full school and we have confidence to show that we can do that safely, that decision can happen earlier than what is indicated on this plan. That is ever changing. And these are the guidelines I mentioned in looking at the capacity. These are the numbers in Allegheny County on August 6th in ratio of 100,000 residents in Allegheny County, where we currently are and where we fit in a blended learning or a full remote learning option. As we transition to this new type of learning, some of it still has correlations to what we've done already. We have been a one-to-one district for some time now. Our students do access and turn in documents digitally. At the same time, we did purchase a new LMS system to provide our teachers other opportunities to connect with students. For this reason, we're proposing a calendar change for the board to review tonight and to take into consideration, where we have shifted many of our later in-service dates to the beginning of the year to provide additional training for our faculty and staff so they are better equipped and able to work with our students on the first day of school. And while it might seem that we prolong this, we want to make sure that we have adequate training and we are prepared to give a valuable instructional product from day one. It will not be perfect, but at the same time, we will grow in with this program. We have wonderful faculty and staff members that will rise to the challenge and will do a wonderful job. When we look at the instructional overview, there were many concerns in the way the program was going to look in the spring. No matter how it works or turns out in the system, the instructional program that comes out this fall will not resemble what it did in the spring. We did a fantastic job in a very challenging time, and we put a product out there that allowed many students to access their learning, to finish the year in that, once again, unknown, where we sent students home on a Friday afternoon, some without their materials, some without knowing, and then where 2 weeks turned into the remainder of the year, about 45 to 50 days. When we looked at instructional models, and we'll talk a little bit more in a moment about the synchronous and asynchronous types of learning, the remote, hybrid, and full return, one thing that's important to recognize is, as many other district plans came out and we collaborated with many of these districts, a lot of things are being put together on the fly. When we created this plan, we looked at this, we looked at our teachers, and we said, how can we provide the best educational program That educational program is by students interacting and being taught directly by Bethel Park teachers with Bethel Park curriculum. At the same time, there's many questions about many different groups of students. During students' experiences at Bethel Park and K-12 education, there's many educational milestones. There's many important times in their academic careers, very early on when they are getting the fundamentals and the foundations of their learning, as they persist through those middle years and start to get to those concepts that will build that educational foundation for their high school courses. And finally, that last step before they go to college, where they really narrow their focus, they expand their knowledge, their experiences. And it's not just educationally, it's experiences. It's clubs, it's activities, it's sports. When you look at these opportunities and you look at this, this is all a component of the educational program at Bethel Park High School. So in looking to provide all educational opportunities, we look to do that in a way where we can safely return students and not just put the entire focus on one thing only. Again, if we were to return full and then have a spike or have something that pushed us to close, we feel that might be more detrimental to the students versus building the capacity as stated earlier. When we look at our programs and we look at the options, remote learning. We're looking to start with remote learning, but when we built the remote learning plan here administratively, we tried to have it mirror an opportunity to look like hybrid. One of the growing concerns was, from parents and many, was if my student does not feel safe entering the building, it's not enough just to have them tune in and hear a teacher talk. Again, that is not a satisfactory model. That is what some districts in the area might go to. We are looking at creating a program that allows that student to interact with their teacher in a small group on a staggered schedule. And we'll talk about the schedule shortly and the reason the days and the times were chosen. But for a student to have only work online and not to be able to facilitate it themselves would not be beneficial. We want students to have the opportunity to access resources, to have access to their teachers, and to be able to turn in assignments, get feedback, and to be taught as close to what we're commonly known to do before. So when we look at this slide, that slide above, we want to create an environment where the students feel that nobody is being jeopardized. We want the product to look similar, that if we did return to hybrid sooner, or if we ever had to return to virtual, that the instruction can be consistent in the offering. Again, when we schedule students, we want to make sure that we get their courses based on their selections in the spring, and we do it in a way that it can be seamless from one type of learning option to another. As we go to the next slide, we have here a little breakdown of what asynchronous and synchronous learning looks like. And while this lists some, this does not list all. So it includes these, but is not limited to. When you look at these type of learnings, these are the learnings that we traditionally already do in a normal opening of school. When you look at synchronous first, teacher interaction, discussions, explanations, workshops. We have different opportunities for extension, for remediation. We want students to be able to ask those questions. We want other students to be able to hear those questions, because sometimes students don't ask for help if they don't have an opportunity to hear those questions, or sometimes they're afraid to ask questions. At the same time, there's a socialization factor. We need to work together. We need to have groupings. We need to have peers. Again, if we just have to deal with online programs and what some cyber programs offer, which is different than what a remote option would look like, it's asynchronous. You're not dealing with somebody that you can connect with. You're not dealing with somebody that you get an answer right away. When you have a synchronous learning environment, you get that real-time feedback. You have dedicated times to access your teachers. At the same time, there's asynchronous learning. There's ways to learn without somebody lecturing. If anything, good education has gotten away from that. We want to provide students opportunities. We want them to do hands-on learning. We want them to have the opportunity to explore, to ask questions, and to discover things. So asynchronous learning is listed here. You have recorded presentations, videos, readings, documents, online texts, labs, data questions. We have many opportunities there. We also looked at this when you scroll down a little bit at the virtual schedule. There's been many concerns about putting students on a computer all day, every day. At the same time, there's been many concerns about how is a teacher going to interact with a class of 24, 25, 26, maybe 27 kids. With this hybrid, this remote staggered schedule, this gives students a blended learning opportunity where they have 3 days of asynchronous work and they have 2 days of synchronous live interaction with the teacher. But not only during those 2 days are they interacting with the teacher during a regular scheduled time, they're also doing that at a 50% capacity. So now in that class of 24 or 26, you only have 12 or 13 students in a group. So now they're not vying or fighting for the teacher's attention. And then no matter how we design the instructional product, it really resembles those of a flipped classroom or a block schedule, where you have instruction and extension, or you have preparation and clarification. There's not one right way to do this. The right way to do it is to have valuable learning and to have Bethel Park professionals delivering that instruction. Many school districts have gone to an AA, day off, BB, saying that there's a deep clean day in that. When we evaluated that option, it comes to 2 things. And we'll go over that in the hybrid with the cleaning portion. But if you look here, hybrid learning. So the remote learning schedule was there. We're going to break the students in half. We're going to schedule them and then break them in half so they have the ability to access that teacher. So the learning that one student receives is the same as the other student. It's not holding it up or it's counted in half. It's only staggering it a day. When we go remotely for this first month, it's really to prepare and to build that capacity. If at a time before the end of this month is an opportunity to return to a hybrid schedule, the way the remote schedule is set up would permit us to bring those students back from the remote option if they elect for a hybrid option. At the same time, those remote students will still be able to access the education the same way in both models. If we stay on that current slide above, we look at the hybrid version there, and we talked about the 50% capacity, and I really want to stress the ability and the flexibility to transition from one model to the other. Again, at the same time, the hybrid model does not change the educational product. When we start preparing lessons and teachers start working towards this remote option and delivering their instruction, when we go to hybrid, the only thing that changes is that the students are accessing that live interaction in the building versus remotely, still in that small group staggered schedule. If we slide down and look at the schedule, you'll see that it looks very similar to that of what we presented in the remote learning option. And for that being is that we want it to be consistent. So if we schedule students in our normal capacities and demands, but we've determined that with social distancing guidelines, we could not establish 6 feet and other safety precautions. We talked about hallways. We talked about cafeterias. The hybrid model allows us to put our classrooms at a 50% capacity. We've looked at cafeteria setups. We've removed our traditional tables. We've taken our desk out of the classroom and we're moving them to the cafeteria to provide large group seating for students to be 6 feet apart in a more suitable way, at the same time to also increase our capacity. Those desks in the cafeteria also serve as a large group meetings place. Eventually, students are going to need to take PSATs and SATs and SATs again. By doing this in a hybrid model, we've created a space in the high school cafeteria, speaking for myself, that we can now suit and hold those events with the necessary safety precautions, which is another questions we've gotten a lot on, is how do we take these admittance tests and other testing factors. At the same time, we create large spaces to explore different options with different learning environments. So at a time, whether it's October 4th or prior, if we return to a hybrid model, it gives a seamless transition where the students, based on their sequencing, based on their groups, will be able to choose to attend class. So if we had 12 students in that hybrid remote group on Monday, it's the same 12 to 13 kids that a teacher might have been working with. You might now have 6 or 7 of those kids in class, and you might have 3 online. But with the smaller numbers, it gives the opportunity to give a valuable instructional product, or to at least give access and clarification from teacher to student. Again, I talked about the option and why we went every other day. There's a few options when you did this. Many districts went 2 days in a row with a day off on Wednesday and then 2 days in a row. When you looked at a safety precaution and you have a deep clean day in there on Wednesday, the reality is we need to be deep cleaning every day. We've explored different options. Our Buildings and Grounds Director, Nick Fierce, has done a wonderful job. We've outfitted our buildings with hand sanitizers, spray, directional signs. We're adhering to social distancing guidelines. When we return to school in a hybrid scenario or a full model, we have a lot of the necessary precautions. We've looked at our staffing and how we can bring night staffing in earlier to get some more effective cleaning. The reality is, when you go AA, day off BB, you still have students switching classes every period. We've fashioned every class with hand wipes. We're encouraging students to police their areas, to take those responsibilities and making sure their areas are sanitized. We're doing cleanings throughout the day. Another part is that, so safety-wise, if we take those precautions and we ensure that we're monitoring that, we look at it instructionally. If a student went 2 days in a row, they have 5 days off before they have an opportunity to interact with their teacher. So much time passes in between there without clarification, they might not be able to get the academic point that they intended for. They might forget their question, and we really think it would jeopardize learning. With this model, it gives an opportunity for students to access their teachers, to extend their work, or to preview work, and then to have the clarification in class, and then to repeat. So it really models a 2-day block or a flipped classroom scenario where these students might have some independent work and they might have some synchronous work in there. Academics, assessment, and grading. Traditional assessments will return in the spring. Obviously, under the conditions and the circumstances, we went with a different model for the hybrid remote or full learning experience in the 2021 school year. We can see that we're returning to our previously set policies that are designated in every student's individual building's handbooks. Looking at our LMS, we're hoping to provide and connect some of the daily assignments with the LMS with Schoology. It does connect with our PowerSchool eSchool module, which will allow help monitoring and different things. In one of the technology slides, we share some different videos with how the parents can access and benefit from Schoology, as well as the students. So while we explored the hybrid and remote option, there is a third option here at Bethel Park. It is the BP Cyber School, also known as the Bethel Park Online Academy. Now, while the Bethel Park Online Academy is a wonderful product, it's an outside option of the normal curriculum from the teachers. It is based on the PA Common Core. They are highly qualified teachers, but it is an asynchronous only product. This product has valuable educational components, but it is not our teachers and it is not our curriculum. That's why we are hoping that all that might be considering these options or looking at others would explore our remote program, because our remote program is the only one that provides that live interaction no differently than any other hybrid option or full option. Student services. While these slides could be much longer, no matter what option we choose, we will continue to implement, review, and revise any IEPs, 504 GIPs as necessary within both models of hybrid and remote. At the same time, we're looking at different opportunities for social emotional learning through our school counselors, social workers, mental health providers, and related service providers to make sure that our students still have their different supports and accommodations as indicated in their programs. Looking at our paraprofessionals, ways that they can connect and support students. And with all our other technologies and communications, with the addition of Google Meets and different options, we hope that we can increase communication, progress monitoring, and offer an effective product in communications and holding meetings virtually when possible. And with that being said, all evaluations and reevaluations will be conducted per the health and safety protocols. So even if we are virtual or remote, as long as we're in the guidelines or protocols, evaluations and reevaluations can occur as long as we're under the health and safety guidelines. Looking at our technology, we have adopted the new learning management system, K-12. At the same time, the elementary schools have done much work with Google Classroom. We do have the new Schoology program that will be available to all our teachers. There's different tools and options in there. There's abilities to screen capture, video creation. You could do self-reading, self-monitoring. If we're going to have students access their learning differently, there's got to be different ways for students to finish assessments and to demonstrate their understanding. So we have many tools and we've utilized many tools. At the same time, we've added more to that arsenal, and we will continue to evaluate and to improve the ways that we can connect our technology with our students. As stated earlier, here are some of the resources and some videos and some early tutorials. We are going to continue to work to put out more to the families, to students, and to the faculty in preparing and training for this. We are enlisting and going to provide numerous trainings for everybody. And at the same time, we want to increase our ability to utilize these tools and benefit, once again, to increase communication, to provide and connect our students with their learning. We're not going to play this now, but this is one of our elementary teachers demonstrating a little bit about the Schoology program in her time this year. Health and safety overview. So last week we went through the health and safety plan. There have been some updates to it. I know that's being reviewed by the board tonight as well. And when we go back to the original intention of this meeting, it's to ensure safety. We want to be able to provide our stakeholders the opportunity to walk into a safe environment and feel confident in the procedures and protocols that are occurring. So while that plan covers many, there's additional resources here for the high school, the middle school, and the elementaries with more specifics to their buildings. In looking at COVID cases, we will attempt to identify and contact individuals who potentially been exposed to COVID-19 within 48 hours prior to the individual developing symptoms. At the same time, we hope that families understand when we do return to any form of in-school model that we police ourselves. If you don't feel well or you're not there, you are encouraged to stay home. And that's another reason why we have tried to make the virtual remote program and the hybrid program look similar. Because if we can avoid compromising others' safety while not compromising students' instruction, I think we could have the best of both worlds, and we can get to a place where we can safely and fully return if those conditions are met by all. We will communicate through School Messenger, social media platforms, and we will keep everyone in the loop. So when we look at this, the guidelines currently, and to give you an example of why visually we felt uncomfortable going right back to a full. When we were unable to use the guidelines to space out, on the example on the left, you see the close proximity. If somebody was positive with COVID-19, it significantly compromises the surrounding students or people in that area. When you provide proper social distancing and you have the measures in place to do this, it might not compromise all those in the room. In looking at this and in staying and adhering to our PA and our plan that we put out last week, we will involve the Allegheny County Department of Health, and they'll be involved in making decisions with quarantine and different effects. But we will have the other safety measures and precautions in place. And if we have the proper social distancing in these learning environments, it significantly reduces the amount of people that might have to quarantine based on those cases. Again, the way it has stand is right now is if you're exposed to somebody within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes, you must quarantine. Now, there's obviously other factors that will be considered in context that could also put you into that qualifying factor. Cafeteria procedures, we're going to release a lot more. I can't speak volumes enough about everybody and how they responded. Joe Consolmango and his staff, as well as all the volunteers, including faculty, staff, board members, administration that helped last year. We did a wonderful job of providing lunch for those students in this district that qualified it or needed it. At the same time, we are going to do nothing less during this time. So we will have a plan in place. If we are in remote learning, for hybrid learning, there will be protocols in place to reduce and minimize the option of contamination. We spoke briefly earlier about the cafeteria and the school desk being placed in there so we could achieve 6 feet distancing. We will have procedural stuff and different options to try to stagger releases and avoid bottlenecking, very similar to we will in hallway transitions. Transportation, one of the most staggering challenges we've seen and many other districts have seen from a full capacity standpoint. Obviously in remote, it's not an issue. As we return to hybrid and we limit the capacity, you're cutting down your buses from approximately 46 to about 23, 24. Whether we have assigned seating or with the older grades, this procedural option here is a stagger every seat. We will have a seat in the front of the bus for any student that might be symptomatic that we don't want to expose any other students. But at the same time, we're encouraging every other seat on every other side, and then sequentially, we'll have different sequences and filling those in. We encourage students from the same household, if they can pair up in seats, to open other available seatings to get as much distancing as possible. In a hybrid model, we feel a lot more comfortable in the safety procedures if a student was in a single seat or was spaced out as much as possible in doing this. I know Scott Zeeler also has different procedures with wipe downs, opening and circulating air, and some different things in place that are included in our reopening health and safety plan, as well as procedures that he will be working on with the drivers. Athletics and activities. Obviously, there's been much in this area with the news. As we stated earlier, we are aware that the educational experience here at Bethel Park and anywhere is not just academics. It's activity, it's interaction, it's friendships, it's bonds. So in regards to this, there is no clear changes or stopping anything. Everything is in line right now with the athletic plan. If this changes, if we were given additional mandates or stoppages between that guidance from the state level and with the school board, decisions will be made at that time. For right now, it's an opportunity. When we look to build building density through a remote option, it's not to avoid the problem, it's to try to assure and ensure that we can do it. So right now, under our current protocols, we've had coaches, we've had students participating in different activities. As they continue to do so, and we can demonstrate and show with certainty that we've been able to mitigate and use our protocols to ensure that these students have not come down or contracted it from each other, then that might provide more opportunities and greater confidence in making a decision to return sooner than the presented timeline, in line also with the Allegheny numbers. Again, while I presented this information tonight, this was a team effort. If you have any additional questions, these are my fellow colleagues and administrators who have worked tirelessly to put this together and will continue to work hard to ensure, again, the three main points we highlighted tonight is school is safe, school is valuable learning experience, and the third one is that students have fun and have a great experience and get everything they need to get out of the Bethel Park School District.
Thank you so much, Mr. Villani. This isn't what we're voting on tonight. We're voting on changing our safety plan, but when that vote occurs, this is what's going to happen as a result of that. Is that correct?
Correct. This plan is in line with the recommendations under the health and safety plan.
Okay, so at this time, I think maybe board members have some questions. So, Mr. Ryer, if you could, if there's a particular, or maybe, I don't know, maybe Mr. Villani if there's a particular slide that is being referred to, maybe you can call that back up when a question is asked. But at this time, board members, please feel free to ask questions about this plan if you have any concerns or questions about it.
I personally have a lot. So just to keep things somewhat organized, maybe we go by board member, let board member ask their questions. We're not bouncing back and forth. And
Okay,
if questions are answered, we can check them off our list.
okay,
Uh,
go ahead.
Okay. So let's start with, yeah. All right. Let's start with slide number 4.
Make sure you're talking into the microphone as much as possible.
Right. Let's start with slide number 4. It says the goal is safely return students to classrooms as soon as possible. We were planning on a full reopen last week, right before the meeting. It was posited to some of the board members that we may start with a hybrid reopen just because we can't maintain social distancing and things with a full reopen, which I was open to that if that was the safer way to do it. But I'm still not clear why we can't open at least with the hybrid on September 1st.
I would say with this, when you look at the options and you look at the considerations, I think I heard it last week's board meeting, the parent reading a statement. We have the ability to return. It's what we can ensure. And when we talk about what we're gambling on people's health and well-being. So as myself administratively, as a principal of an individual building, my number one priority is the safety and well-being of the students, whether it is an emergency drill, whether it's something here. We could return full and see what happens, but I don't find that answer as an adequate one. So with this and building the building capacity, it's not just the students, it's the families. We've heard about the caregivers in the area. We have the faculty in each building. Some of them have compromised situations where they care for elderly adults. They might have something that prohibits them or puts them in an endangered category. Again, to start virtually is to get back to start something. We left on March 13th. We have not been in school for 5 months. To come full swing out of the gate, it's like learning to drive. We've kind of used the analogy here. You practice in a parking lot, you then get on the street, and then get on the highway. To jump right in with some of the unknown questions and the collateral damage being the student's health, well-being, or even the prolonged year being compromised further, we felt it was more safe to get the students ready, the teachers adequated, and then, once again, 2 weeks go by, if things are going well and we want to consider the hybrid model sooner, this schedule gives us the ability to transition that right away.
And any other administrators who are on, if you want to jump in and help Mr. Valani with these answers, feel free.
Okay, and I agree that health and well-being is paramount here, but when we're talking about a global pandemic in isolation of the school, when everything else is up and running, including our sports programs, including recreational sports programs, isn't social emotional well-being of students, screening some of the primary responsibilities of schools, or secondary responsibilities of schools, screening for abuse, neglect, and food insecurity, aren't those things a large part of that health and well-being also that we're going to lose the opportunity to do?
I'll speak a little bit to that process. First and foremost, I think it's important for us to realize that we don't know what we don't know yet. 2 weeks ago, the New York Times put out an article saying what you are talking about as far as the American Pediatric Center and how influential this pandemic has been on mental health. Then yesterday, New York Times put out that that there are more significant consequences to the long-term effects of COVID-19 on children. So when we look at this information that's chronically changing, I think it's important for us to keep that in our mindset. The outside athletics are outside. You know, our fall athletics are all outside, and that's a significant piece to providing a safe and healthy environment for our students. Our learning environments are inside. So it creates a different paradigm when we look at those particular things. The opportunity for kids to be 6 feet apart while they're participating on a football field is a little bit different than being 6 feet apart in a hallway that's 9 feet apart. So there's those considerations that we take into account as we go forward. And I think that we are constantly looking at, I do a spreadsheet daily on the information, the COVID information for Allegheny County, and then look specifically at Bethel Park. Bethel Park's numbers had 3 weeks ago were double digits. Now they're triple digits. So we have an influx of cases in our community. We have the number of children that are being affected as we've opened up our doors and had more kids involved in activities and our restaurants opened. And what we have found is we have more kids being diagnosed. You know, it's a small number still, but what we have seen in communities in Georgia or some of Mississippi, the schools that have opened, they have quickly had to close because of a COVID outbreak. So we want to be conscious of that.
On that point, though, we're talking about 2 states where they have not had even the mask mandates or any of the things that we've had. There's been a lot of pushback. You're kind of comparing apples to oranges in that our state has taken greater precautions
Sure.
than both of the states quoted.
And even with those precautions, the numbers in Allegheny County continue to grow. So that's all, you know, and I think and my background, as you all know, is mental health. And I think that we do definitely want to make sure that we are addressing those issues as well and make sure that we're providing those resources. We have a wonderful partnership with Auberly. Our social workers are going to be available for online counseling sessions. Our SAP program is going to be up and running no matter what program we are using. We will have our therapists available, our guidance counselors will be available. Parent meetings and those kind of things are still very much a part of whatever program we were going to offer. It's truly, Mr. Nagel, and this is really a challenge for us all in trying to make the best decision that's going to cause no harm. And schools, communities, municipalities, the city, we're all put into a position right now where we have to make decisions on mitigating the harm because there's potential, and we want to be conscious of that.
Thank you.
And that's,
Next question.
So, yes, thank you for all of that. So it takes me to slide number 5. One of the points you made is that cases are growing, and as we get into October, our target time for opening up hybrid, we expect that probably we're going to start hitting other seasons that have similar symptoms to the COVID symptoms, such as high temperatures, fevers, coughs, things like that. Is it realistic to expect that we're going to open at all if that's the case? If cases are growing and we're pushing the opening back? And let me preface this by saying that's one of the reasons I really would like to see us open earlier, because I know there's a likelihood that, or I believe there's a likelihood that once we get into those months, we're going to have to close, and as much in-person instruction as possible up front, I think would be beneficial.
I'd just like to comment. Our plan, our health and safety plan has, as you know, has evolved. We started with the whole idea of trying to go back full, and, not to be repetitive in my statement here, but there are things we don't know. We don't know if the numbers are going to go up or they're going to go down. But what makes sense about this plan right now, why we've arrived at where we've arrived, is the transition piece back to full. We're going from 5 months of no schooling with a transition piece. While these numbers are still relatively high as it relates to Bethel Park and the county, it makes a lot of sense to start with the 1 month, get everything in line, get the remote learning. Our goal is to use our faculty and staff and our curriculum and make sure that we have a very good education piece in place. We did not do that in the spring, and let's fall back to that just for a moment. We were just flying by the seat of our pants, but we were also considering all the variables that families were dealing with. We had families that were, everybody was home at that point in time. People were out of work, and it was a devastating place to be. We were still passing out Chromebooks. There were things that had to be in place, and so that we weren't too, our expectations weren't too high, we went with, participation grades and things of that nature at secondary level, just trying to get the school year wrapped up and concluded. So we're working backwards now from the standpoint of our numbers aren't great right now. And, like you say, we could go to October, they could spike, they could also go down. And so our plan might be a very effective plan, but I am cautious, that we go in with the hopes that, we hope it'll work out okay. I'm a little skeptical of that. I don't think that's logistically the way to go. So our plan is a collection of all the folks. We have had folks that are on the committee. We've given them the document. We've asked for their input, and folks are kind of like frozen in time. Nobody really knows the right answer. So we don't have a crystal ball. We believe this is the best place right now for us to open up safely. That's the goal, that key word, and that's our number one goal by the school board, safely reopen the schools. So that's where we are right now.
Mr. Nagel, I was just going to add, somebody in the comments last week or the week before asked us to be creative. And what this plan gives in this scheduling is the ability to be creative. And when you look at building classroom density, we might not have to wait till October. We have 2 days of synchronous learning there, whether we're remote or hybrid learning. If a week into September, we feel we're ready and we can set this up logistically with transportation, there's no reason why one of those 2 days can't be in-person hybrid before that. What this gives us is the ability to be flexible, but not compromise the educational program. So while we look to get back to a hybrid option, theoretically in October, we could pull that Monday, Tuesday, so each one of those groups that is selecting a hybrid option when we put our survey out for a final choice, to do that, to feel that out, to see that sooner, which might prompt us to accelerate the plan at that time.
So I do appreciate your ability to be flexible. What this plan does, though, is takes away the parents' ability to be flexible and the students' ability to be flexible also, which leads me to slide 8. It says exploring coordination with childcare regarding on-site care. If childcare can be provided on-site, which very well may be necessary for a lot of families, like Dr. Jansani just said, in the spring, people did lose their jobs. People were at home with their kids. Right now, not everybody has that option. And while we're not responsible for being childcare, I think it is an obligation that is expected in dual family households with school-age children with free and appropriate education, that they can plan their jobs and careers around that. So if we can provide childcare in the schools, why can't we provide education in the schools?
So I would say 2 things to that answer. First part is, if we create a valuable instructional piece, separate childcare from learning instruction. A lot of things in the spring was very challenging because a lot of parents were burdened with having to connect that learning. If we have our teachers involved and active in that learning experience in a new model, it changes the type of adult supervision that would be necessary by parents to supervise those students. And trust me, we all as administrators, parents, different things, we understand that burden and we do not take that lightly. We don't want to impact or hurt anyone else more than they've been hurt. But when you ask that question about building capacity and why do we have sports and activities, we're trying to demonstrate and to show that we can return. By all means, this plan is an active and aggressive plan to get back to hybrid and then full learning. I mean, the goal is to get there, and that's why it's stated throughout. Again, asking me to gamble the well-being of a student or a family, I would rather take it slow and then accelerate it by demonstration. So if we did have an opportunity and we explore this coordination for childcare, it's an option that's out there. We're exploring it in different ways or forms. But again, it's not bringing 1,400 kids back to the high school. It's not filling 200 staff members in the building and then having them on a regimented schedule. If we create these alternative spaces, if we're not using these spaces like the auditoriums, the gyms, where we can really social distance and we really help those that need those needs, it's an option we're willing to explore, again, once demonstrating the ability. We had Chromebook collections at the high school. We had 110 kids on Thursday, 110 kids on Wednesday and Thursday, and we had about 100 on Monday. We had some events going on with protocols. Students entered. It looked and felt different. Again, we're in this as a community. And it's funny, this is the 3rd time I'm speaking to the board. When I got hired on June 26, 2018, it was right after the major flooding in Bethel Park, where the trolley stopped in. A parent made a comment that night of, yes, we're doing something, but the community needs to hear that we're trying. And that's what we could say right now is we're trying. We get that. We do not make these decisions with a light heart. You know, there are people suffering in this community, but there are also people that are strong in this community. And that's where I say this could be an opportunity for us to better our program, to better our education, and to get somewhere sooner than many other districts might, and doing that with a valuable product. So it's not a this or that for me right now. It's if we can do what's best and we can give all, we will.
So, page 9, or slide 9, remote learning instruction is designed to give students the experience of being in class from their homes. The information shared with the board on Friday showed a schedule for the online component that is a 7.5-hour day for students. I'd like to kind of wrap my head around how we can expect students to sit in front of a computer, even if they do have assignment time where they pull away from the computer for a full day. B, how we can expect parents who may not be at home or may have to put their kids in childcare to accommodate the schedules that we set for them.
Absolutely. So this schedule actually addresses that, which is one of the things we're really proud of. So when you look at teacher preparation and lessons and delivery of instruction, while you see those 2 synchronous days, those are 2 days that the student will follow a schedule and have the teacher available at that time. When you look at the situation and you look at the spring and you look at the feedback from parents, to have a teacher available for certain office hours and to have 125 students vying for that teacher's attention is very challenging. When a student has designated time, that's 2 periods a day. Speaking from a high school perspective, students might have 6 classes. You know, they have lunch, they have study halls, they have downtime in between that. So on 2 of those days, we're asking them to be available for those live interactions. During those other 3 days, during the asynchronous piece, that's extension or that's preparation work. That's not tied to a schedule. So there's flexibility, even with a weekend and different times. Those can be done 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as long as it's prior to their deadlines, and teachers have extensions and deadlines for different assignments. So this schedule, by staggering that, creates small group interaction on the days they do get the teacher, which kind of doubles the time in a narrow scope and affording students that time, but also providing 3 asynchronous days that are not tied to an hourly thing and could have help any time of the day.
Okay, so
I think you're really talking about the next slide, right? That we had
well,
that one. This is,
well,
I was just
yeah.
gonna suggest that maybe we should, not to take away from your time, but this is an area that I think everybody in the board probably has questions about.
Right.
Oh, sorry, now you can hear me. But this is a slide that everybody on the board's gonna have questions about, and I think
Right.
everybody in the community has also. We should probably pause here and make sure we really flush out this slide so that we all really understand, you know, what this means. So.
I think, if I could have a moment, I think one of the things that we have to put into perspective is a child's 6.5 day in our educational brick and mortar program is not sitting at a desk, even though their period might be 42 minutes or 84 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever. It is active and moving, and the reflection of what that hybrid program would look like is similar in that effect to some degree. There's a portion of it that is engaged in the computer to some degree, but then there's a portion that is, you know, centered, is interaction, is standing, you know, those kind of things. There's breaks that are built in. There's lunch, there's, you know, the specials, there's all of those things that are intertwined in that. And I don't think that any of us have a desire to have a child in front of a computer for 7 hours a day. What our intent is to provide an educational program that is interactive and provides that educational resource that we want it to do, is to grow our kids. So, you know, cyber learning is not for everybody. And quite frankly, ultimately, we want the kids back safely. And we're going to try to make the best of it. And I think this is one of the areas that, as we are engaged with our children, our teachers are engaged with their students, there could be some evolution of what this looks like as we move forward in the
So
practicality
not to
of learning.
Cut you off, but
Yeah.
you know, I think we're going to be on this topic a lot. I was actually looking for some detail on this. So if you could kind of walk us through a little bit around when we see, like on a Monday, synchronous live, is that all day? Is it a half a day? How many hours do you think we're looking at for synchronous live for this group versus the asynchronous?
I think it depends on the level. So obviously there's going to be a standard format. When you get to the upper grades, the capacity to sit down and to get engaged for longer durations, I think as adults, we look at time, and even as a principal myself, I don't know if I could do what kids did or what we did back then. It's challenging, but I think when you look at the older kids, they have a capacity. I think there's flexibility within the plan where elementary students might have, you know, math focus, ELA focus, and then breakdown. So it's flexible. When you ask me what the instruction looks like, we have great teaching professionals. I do not want to tie their hands. We do not want to tie their hands in saying that this is exactly what it looks like, because good teachers and great teaching happens in so many different ways. So, you know, asynchronously, what does new instruction look like? Maybe a teacher has a pre-recorded video. Maybe they give a slight lecture. Maybe a student has a reading or a web quest or something else that they explore something. New instruction can happen in many different ways. So asynchronously, they might have an assignment. They might have a reading to prep for the class. They might watch a quick video. They might watch a demonstration. You know, with the internet and the resources and the tools, it could be something that's teacher created. It could be generated there. At the same time, so if you have prep work asynchronously or pre-work, the synchronous component could be a lab. It could be a workshop. It could be a discussion. It could be an argument. It could be presentations by students. At the same time, some teachers might want to say, hey, when I have my students, I want to give the new instruction at that time. And then, you know what, I'm going to have them do extension. I'm going to have them do math problems. I'm going to have them submit things. So it's a flipped option. It's a teach extend, like a block option where instruction there. To say that we would handcuff our professionals in saying that it must look like this, it can look any way because every teacher has a different style. The goal is that the students are getting live interaction with Bethel Park teachers no matter what the option is, whether it's full, hybrid, or remote. That's different than any other online cyber program that's out there.
So
to that point, you know, you mentioned the word kind of, you know, style and approach.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that we heard consistently from a lot of parents over the last, you know, since March is there's a huge variation in approach, consistency, and outcomes. So how do we, in this approach, guarantee or ensure that, you know, across different grades, you know, like say at the elementary level, different subjects that are kind of similar subjects, is there, you know, what are we thinking about to drive consistency across these different, you know, drive consistency across the same, say, fourth grade classes, okay?
I would say it's very similar to how we do it now. Again, that's a challenge. No two teachers are going to teach the same class alike. When we look at that, we have to be creative in the way we afford teachers time for preparation, to collaborate, to share, the way administratively we communicate with our staffs, we gauge feedback, communications. We want to be able to see this and to provide a learning experience. It's no different than what we do in the classroom now, where is the experience mirror or is the same. So we need to provide resources, we need to provide training, and then we need to follow up. and we need to make sure that a good educational product's being there.
Right.
The
Mr.
consistent-
Christensen, this is Dave Minch here. Just a quick add-on to that with just Joe's explanation is just that, this year the big difference obviously being is that we're going to have real assessment. And, I think that drives instruction obviously quite a bit and will be, I think, a great equalizer, motivator across the classrooms with that added emphasis on the assessment piece that we didn't have in the spring. We were just looking at completion, and that drives a lot of parent-teacher conversation. That drives a lot of ingenuity and individualization to the programming. When teachers are actively looking at assessment data, that drives a lot of things, and it drives teacher practice, I can assure you. So that's going to be a big difference.
And if I can add, Dave, the consistency piece is the curriculum. You shouldn't have to go, if you go from one elementary building to another, how we deliver instruction is going to vary, but the curriculum needs to be the same. So that's really how it works.
And
Whether
I'm less concerned about the consistency of style, more concerned about the consistency
How much
of
time.
outcomes
Right.
through the assessments, through when we get back to standardized tests or whatever.
Right.
But somewhere we have to have an outcome-based assessment to know if what we're doing is consistent, even if the styles are different, but are we getting consistent results?
Yeah. Well,
We
the principals
have-
are going to work with their individual teachers, and they're going to, that's the goal, is to make sure that when we do the hybrid piece, that we do it in a way that makes a lot of sense, which is going to give us the flexibility, not the hybrid, sorry, the remote, that when we go to hybrid, we're going to be ready to do those things. And that's why the schedule that's been set up by Joe and the other principals really gives us the ability to jump from synchronous to asynchronous back and forth, whether we're live or whether we're remote.
So to that point, the synchronous to asynchronous back and forth, or do we foresee any problems with a need to reinforce the instruction with the kids who are receiving asynchronous every other day on their synchronous days? Is it going to slow down or take away from their delivery of education?
Most of our curriculum is spiraling in that you go back and you repeat, you repractice, you move forward, you repeat, you repractice, you go forward. So there's opportunity all of the time. Now, our assessment schedule, no matter what program we are in, is going to continue. We give the dibbles for reading, early reading fluency with our title program at different grade levels. We're going to continue that. We do common assessments in our brick and mortar. We're going to have common assessments. So there's going to be those practical pieces of data collection that we have been doing for years to make sure that we're on a pathway that's consistent across grade levels, designed to meet the standards at each grade level. That continues. We are exploring things like CDTs, which are the classroom diagnostic tools that the Pennsylvania Department of Ed puts out, that are available electronically and online, to do an assessment to find out, where our kids are, so we design our instruction around those. That doesn't change. That's good educational practice, and we'll continue to do that no matter what avenue we are in, and addressing that. At the elementary level, they have talked about starting each and every one of their days, whether you're synchronous or asynchronous, with a classroom meeting, that the kids, that are at home are logging in to start the day, do the morning activities, make that personal contact.
So Dr. O'Rourke, that's exactly what I think we've been asking for. You just hit the nail on the head, and I don't expect it tonight, but we've been asking for this for the last couple weeks, and it's something that the parents are asking for also. A kind of a consistency in the way the day will play out. I understand the variation in the teaching styles and so forth and so on, but there's also got to be some kind of maybe minimum standard, like everybody greets the students in the morning and lays out the plan. I mean, that has to be a directive. This is
Sure.
what we're going to
And
do.
that was, I'm sorry.
And so then, we've also asked for sample days in the life or sample templates. I think that will be valuable for the parents so that they can see they're not going to sit in front of the computer for 7 hours. And I mean, I could make one up. I mean, so we just need to assure parents that it's not 7 hours for the elementary kids in front of the computer. And I understand that, but in the next couple of weeks, we need multiple templates, and we do need some minimum standards for what the teachers will do in terms of the day. And it might not be first thing in the morning that everybody greets them, but so you will greet everybody or something like that this amount of time during the day. And I understand we're not there yet. I'm not asking you for that answer tonight, because you did a lot of work to come up with what we have in the last 5 days. It's been amazing. But we're getting pounded by people asking those questions.
Well, and
So
the irony,
please,
the irony is we do in fact have that. The principals have done that piece of work, and that was part of the presentation last week that some of the
Sorry,
board.
we didn't see anything around
Right.
minimum standards last
Yeah. And so we
looked
need
at
to,
the
we
slide.
need to make sure, and the elementary principals are on right now, and we need to make sure that that's public. And I may be speaking out of turn, but I believe that the elementary program, the building level programming is part of that process that we are
I mean,
moving
yeah, I
forward.
understand, and
But
it's
just
just
to be
something
clear,
that we're asking for.
Just so you understand the expectations, Ms. Dove, I agree completely. We need to see that minimum standard of what the day looks like, how the interaction with students. And I'm sorry, that didn't exist last week, okay? So if you're thinking of something that was presented last week, that's not what we're asking for. It's much more detail in terms of what that minimum standard is.
We will work on that, and we will
Thank
put out
you.
more material to you as well as the public about what those lessons will look like and what that feel will look like in this remote and hybrid option.
And you know, when we look at the literally hundreds of emails that we've been getting, people are desperately looking for that. And to all of you, you know, from 2 weeks ago to last week to this week, tremendous amount of detail in terms of, you know, what the plan looks like. Congratulations, that's great. I think now, though, we've got a week and a half before teachers come back to the classroom to start preparing. We got to know how to tell them to prepare. And so we got a lot of work to do in a week and a half, you know, probably more than what you did in the last week.
I think the word now is everybody needs to go into the weeds. Everybody now needs to open up and say, this is what a day for a kindergartner is going to look like. This is what a day for 1 through 4 is going to look like. This is what a day for 5 and 6 are going to look like. We know those are all different. You know, if you've had a child in several of these buildings, those experiences are all different. So that is the next step. You know, again, this is major steps forward, a whole lot of work by a whole lot of people, and, you know, fantastic job. But the next step is everybody has to step into the weeds, because that's what we as parents want to see. And I'm not just a school board member, I'm a parent. I have a rising first grader and a rising junior, and I need to know what their day is going to look like. And I can't get to the amount of emails. I have 144 emails that I have marked that I have parents that have questions about exactly what I'm talking about. So that is the next steps that I think we all are directing that we need to see. And we need to see them before the teachers step in the room, and we need teachers' help with this.
Okay, Mr. Nagel, do you have some more questions? I'm assuming you do.
I'll kind of sum it up. You guys have seen all the emails. Most of my questions are reflective of the emails also. First of all, I don't agree that we've taken a major step forward. I personally believe we took a major step backwards in not reopening initially. I as I've said, I don't foresee, if you're looking at this scientifically, if you're looking at this as how cases are going, I don't foresee us opening remotely and the opportunity coming again once we've decided or conceded, which I'm not willing to concede, that we can't safely open, at least in a hybrid model. I don't see where we get to that point. But with that said, the only other question I have is about attendance dropout rate. If we go to online, I fear a lot of our children are going to fall through the cracks also with attendance, with their growth, with dropout rates in high school, with things of that nature. Have you guys taken any of that into consideration? And if so, can you please address your feelings or research or whatever you think on that?
Well, let me just make a brief comment to that, Mr. Nagel. Keep in mind what we're doing, and it's going to be thorough, but what we're doing is for a much briefer and shorter period of time than what we did last spring in terms of March through June. It's only going to be about a 3.5 to 4 week period. I talked earlier about a grant that we have an opportunity to get that, and it will give us also possibly an opportunity to add some staff to address all of those specific concerns. Children who, someone dedicated to keeping children on track, who are not completing assignments, who are not coming to school, who are, or signing in, whatever it happens to be. So I think that we will have that covered. It is for a shorter period of time. It was a way of, I think, easing our parents into it. And of course, too, and I don't want to specifically identify it to any particular thing, but we are using a new platform, Schoology, and so this all gives us an opportunity to give teachers training and practice time. And that also includes pieces for parent training as well. So, and I think Mr. Villani and also Mr. Jansani, Dr. Jansani mentioned too, if the opportunity arises, those parents, that time period can be cut short. But I think one of the reasons why the plan included having teachers come back into the classroom was that it began down that road of normalcy in school again.
Okay,
No, even though we haven't finalized that, that concept with the teachers yet.
okay, other board members have questions that they would like to ask at this time?
I have just,
Pam, can I just ask a quick question, please? Or make a
Yeah,
comment?
is that Mr.
Russ.
Spikuza? Okay.
Russ, yeah. Mrs. O'Rourke, I just have a question. You were mentioning the numbers in Bethel Park are rising. We have a population of 33,533 people, and we've had 121 cases total, and only 6 in the last 7 days. So what am I missing?
The numbers that I looked at, we had 118 last week. I think it's 120 something, as you had said, this week. So those numbers are just going up. I mean, like it's the numbers that we had 3 weeks ago were in the 80s and 90s, 88, I think, at the beginning of August, 118 just recently. And then I think today it was 120 something. So,
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll let
and
you
I'm looking at the data that's on the Allegheny County website map thing that they provide for us.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that's like a 0.0036% infection rate in the community. I'm not sure that we should be basing all of our decisions on those numbers. That really bothers me. I've been out in public quite a bit, and I've seen anything from picnics, parties, baseball games, etc., where there's no social distancing. Students at the high school not social distancing when they're doing pictures and photographs and all that. And we need to find a way to get these kids in school any way we can. And I know it's only 3 to 4 weeks potentially that we'll have a hybrid plan, but I'm still not satisfied with that.
Other questions from anybody on the board?
This is Darren McGregor. The one thing that I really want to ask is, we have some really, really needy kids who just can't learn online. Will there be not a remote option, but an in-person option for those children to come to school and be face-to-face with the teachers?
Hi, I'm Amy Zundel. I'm the solicitor with the district. I work really closely with Lori Sutton and the team. Just from a legal perspective, students with IEPs, Section 504 plans, the neediest learners for certain are entitled to an individualized program. And COVID has not changed that. I think it has mostly enhanced that. And I know that the district will be working diligently over the next few weeks to work with families directly to make sure that the plan accommodates the child's individual needs. And Lori, if there's anything you want to add to that, go ahead.
Okay, other questions?
No, Amy, I understand that. I think that was more of a question to administrators and the rest of the board to consider, instead of remote, live in-person education for those kids. But just think about it. You don't have to answer right now, anybody. So we'll talk later.
I think that's on slide 8. It's being worked on, I think, Mr. McGregor, and developed. I don't think we have the full answer for that right now.
I don't
So
know if
I had
it's
a question
appropriate.
on the Google Classroom. I saw it's still mentioned and as an option for elementary levels. You know, anytime this is pretty big investment. I think it's pretty strategic in terms of how we're going to deliver learning. Anytime we make something like this optional, it worries me that we're going to have just a wide range of variation, and it'll be okay. And I don't think it will be. And so I'm wondering, why are we still giving people the option to have Google Classroom if we're moving to Schoology?
I can answer that. The reason that we gave the elementary specifically the option for Google Classroom is Schoology, and other school districts have done this as well. Schoology is a little bit click heavy in certain aspects. Google Classroom, the docs, all of the apps that are in Google can be incorporated into Schoology in time, but the teachers really felt that the kids were used to using the Google Suite in school as well as last spring, and to make that transition for those kids that are not as tech savvy as some of our older kids would be, that it would be a good transition. I anticipate there's some definite benefits that as our teachers explore more of the characteristics of Schoology, that they'll want to use that, and they'll be able to work with their kids to make sure that they're able to get to the resources that are available there. But it was made as a collective decision that Google Classroom was a little bit more child-centered at the elementary level than Schoology was. So that's why that was given a benefit to that group, is to be able to transition, and the effectiveness of it going forward when
So
we may.
I haven't, we've all gotten hundreds of emails, and not one has said we had a positive experience at any grade level in the spring. So I'm just worried that, sticking with Google comes across as, just kind of sticking with the safe, but really poor choice. And, I would like to see us look at having a consistent approach of tools. And, of course, the students need to be able to use it, okay? But we should also be thinking about the parents who may have multiple students. And listen, one of the things that concerns our parents in a lot of the emails is they're going to be teachers at night more than ever, just like they were in the spring. And are we doing enough to help them? And I really worry that having two platforms and just giving our staff the ability to choose whatever they want is going to make it a really unmanageable experience for parents. We're not helping them teach, but yet we're asking them to.
Right. And go ahead.
No. Let me just make a quick comment on that, and I don't think any of us would disagree with what you're saying, Mr. Christensen. But I think Dr. O'Rourke kind of explained it, and I did want to add one point to it. The younger students in our elementary schools, from everything that I am being told, function very well with the Google Classroom right now. And so to take children at that age and try to work them into a new platform when teachers are also being now we've had Schoology for a while, and we've had test groups and pilot groups and so forth. We thought it might be just a bit too much, but your caveat or danger is a real one. One of the things that we heard today that the teachers did, and I hope there are some teachers listening because I want them to know that I certainly was very impressed and inspired by this. They have formed their own Schoology group to train one another, and they have well over 100 teachers that work each day on how to better use the platform and so forth. So it may just be a matter of a very short period of time before we can move that K through. And it is available now for teachers who are comfortable going there. But again, it was all about a focus on very young students. The teachers are moving in that direction. They're going to get training. They're already doing self-training. And for the teachers who are listening, that I call it the Teacher Schoology Group. I want you to know I'm very pleased and impressed with that.
The red flag for me is, especially at the elementary level, just letting our staff choose whatever they want. Because I know we talked about outcome is more important than the style, but when you're looking at a tool like this, that's the kind of the backbone of our delivery for online learning. It makes me really nervous that we're going to be okay with having two of them. Really nervous.
I do have concerns about having two of them, having a child at the elementary level and a child at the high school. I would like to see a blended format in case, we want to, I'm hearing from parents, they want to learn about Schoology. They want to be taught how to use this because as we move forward with this plan, it doesn't matter if we start, there is more than likelihood we're going to end up virtual at some point in time during this upcoming school year. And parents need to know how to use it too. Having one at the 5-6 level and one at the K-4 level and having two different systems is not going to make it any easier for any of our parents. And we are spending a tremendous amount of money on training of teachers how to use this program. This training should be kindergarten through 12th grade. Every teacher in this district was my understanding when I asked the question 2 weeks ago on how much money we were spending on Schoology. They have 24/7, 365 access to assistance. Okay, they need to use it.
So,
Any other
so I just had one more in the LMS, and then I know we have 3 hours of emails to read.
Exactly.
Okay?
We're sorry.
Okay.
But I just had one more question and
and the-
suggestion really on the LMS. And I'm happy to hear, and I've heard also, teachers, it comes back to me also, they're looking at it, they like the platform, Schoology. The one request I'd have, because again, there's probably a couple hundred other people that are uncomfortable with it, maybe haven't started using it yet. By the way, I looked at it because I had at-home access to it also because of my situation. And I like it. I think it's a really good tool. The challenge is for every teacher is that it's blank. It's blank. And it would be nice if we had at least a template of how a class should be structured. A little bit more than just the basic navigation, or a tutorial on how to set up a class. Again, thinking about not only the students but the parents who have to help out on different classes, so that when you go from English to math, it doesn't look like a totally different product that they're looking at. So having this, there's this balance between 80% common, 20% unique, or at least the look and feel, so that it becomes a little bit more intuitive for parents to help their students. Again, we're asking them to teach in both these models, these first 2 models.
Do you
We're
want to
still going to
comment
ask
on
them to
that,
teach
Ron,
at the
about
last
the
model
blank
too,
screen?
no matter what.
What?
I said to Ron, I think you should comment on the blank screen business.
So the,
Well, it's not blank. I mean, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but it is a navigation with kind of,
No,
it needs customization.
it is true that every course needs to be built. There are some helper things that you can do in there that will allow you to take courses and share them across the environment, allow some teachers to build parts and pieces and them to assemble the parts and pieces from each other, so that multiple teachers in a grade level or in a subject area could work on and build the same course and then have it shared out. There's course linking, which if you have 5 sections of a course and you're teaching all 5 sections, you can link them together. So whatever you announce or assign in one section will be automatically announced or assigned in another section. And so there are a lot of tools that allow Schoology to reduce the amount of time and effort for teachers that will.
Maybe what I'm asking for is really what Ms. Dobos was asking for in the other areas. It's what are the minimum requirements? If you're going to have a classroom in Schoology, what are the minimum requirements that we as a district want to see in there in terms of type of content, amount of content? Are we going to require all of our assessments to be in Schoology? And it should be a pretty robust set of requirements, of minimum requirements, because, we have all heard, I think all of you have been shared the emails. Parents don't just want this to be 10% better compared to the spring. They want it to be 10 times better. And so we got to have a very robust set of minimum requirements, across the curriculum, across the delivery of the LMS tool. So I think, I know there's a long list of things we have to do, but I think that having a minimum set of like a design guidelines for setting up the class, a minimum set of requirements for how these are structured will actually help the staff adopt the tool much faster.
I have one comment on what you said, Mr. Christensen. You said we're asking the parents to teach. I don't think we are asking the parents to teach. We're asking them to help facilitate what's going on. The teachers are going to teach.
Well,
I just want to make sure that nobody misconstrues your comments.
No, it's not our intent, but I'm more relaying comments that we heard in many of our emails, that there was a lot of frustration from parents because they were being the teacher.
Right.
But you're right. Literally speaking, we are still, maintaining that
Yes, thank you.
responsibility. But I'm just relaying what we've heard from many, many parents.
Yes, okay. So
Yes.
I understand better now what you're saying. Any other comments or questions about this program? Ms. Rule is trying to get into the meeting, so we'll watch for her to come into the meeting possibly. All right, then let's move forward with the agenda. I need a motion to adopt the agenda for business items.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Turner, seconded by Mr. Christensen. All in favor? We're going to need to have a verbal because some of them aren't on. So maybe if you check to see who can vote online and then ask for votes.
Voting is open. Mr. Spacuzza.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we have a lot of comments, public comments on agenda items. We will try to move through these as quickly as we can. We have decided that in the future, we're going to ask you as the public to please limit your comments, your letters, your emails to a 2-minute read, which is what our policy asks for. But at this time, we will be reading what we have in our public comments. So,
Just to warn everybody, it could be 3 hours.
Yeah, this could get long.
seriously. So,
Over 60.
I have 192.
All public
No,
comments?
Filter on date.
Filter on date.
August 5th looks like the first one for here,
August 5th, okay.
at 11:17. You guys seeing
I
that?
found it, okay. So there are also many duplicates, many people who have written more than once. Can you give us a opinion on that, please?
So some school districts do have in their policy manuals a limit on how long public comment will occur. I'm not familiar with Bethel Park having that. But what I do know in your policy is that all individuals must be permitted to speak before somebody can give another comment and come up to the mic if we were in normal times. So what will occur is, I would say, Mrs. Dobos, that we assess where we are after we have read everybody's comments one time, and we'll make a determination at that point how to proceed with the other comments. And I say that only because all of the board members sitting here have access to all of the emails and can read them before a vote occurs. Okay?
Can I ask a question? Is it possible for the really lengthy public comments to just say it is, I'd like to see the school district go back and forth, and then you have the whole, to just mention the summary point of the individual, they're either in favor of going back, they're not in favor, they're in favor of the plan, they're not, and then the board members will have the opportunity to read the entire text.
So that the importance of public comments is that board members review them and consider them before a vote occurs. And so while I certainly appreciate where that suggestion is coming from, I think that it's important that we read them this evening under the rules that we have outlined for public comment in our unusual circumstances.
I think that the first one from August 5th, we received 2 and they're identical. Is that what you?
That's what I've
noted?
seen,
That's what
yeah.
I'm seeing.
Okay, all right. So
I'll start.
will you start, please?
Yes, David Lahickey, 5525 Annetta Drive. I'm asking the school board to open schools in full to any student and parent that wants to attend school. Yes, there are risks, but not in giving the students the ability to fully participate in the school learning. I feel that we as parents and taxpayers will be depriving them of the learning experiences. The district has what, in my opinion, is a great social distancing plan, and if follow children and young adults choosing to go back to in-school learning will be safe. I know that my daughter does better with in-school learning than online for various reasons. Yes, there are risks, but I believe the rewards outweigh the risks. Please do not change to all on an online or hybrid model. Give the parents and students the choices they deserve. David Lahickey.
Okay, the next one is Margaret Simonis.
I can take that.
Okay. And I'm asking the board members, please make sure they put their address in it.
Yeah, this one has address.
Okay.
Yeah, this one has
There,
address.
it's at the end.
Margaret Simonis, is our belief that Bethel Park schools can reopen to in-person instruction this fall if we are all willing to be creative. Our very first priority as a community needs to be for our most vulnerable students who will be left behind with an online-only or hybrid model. We should start first with specific plans for our special education students. Next consideration should be for a kindergarten, then elementary level in general. To think that a hybrid model at the kindergarten level is acceptable to use when kindergartners are barely in the building at all to begin with is not reasonable. Kindergartners should be prioritized to receive 5-day-a-week instruction given the importance of this first year in school, half-day schedule, and their ability to read. If adequate space is an issue based on the number of people who wish to return in person across grade levels, why not only return special education and elementary education students initially and space them out across buildings? There is so much to learn from the local daycares and day camps who have been in session since mid-May. Consider holding classes outside during the fall. It is sad to me that the daycares and even the gym my daughters go to have had to step up and provide services for our children this fall because the school district will not solidify a plan. There was no reason to believe that we would be where we are today months and weeks ago. COVID-19 is and will continue to be a long-term problem. Why are we waiting to make a decision when that is not going to change? Until we are essentially COVID-free or have a vaccine, we will have some risk with in-person instruction, and we will need to plan for any of our most at-risk students and teachers for health complications, allowing both to be online only for as long as necessary. We should be able to give the teachers that want online only teaching those assignments for this year and still have other teachers return safely to in-person teaching. We must be committed to thinking through long-term solutions that address all of our most vulnerable community members and their needs. One solution does not fit all. Thank you, Margaret and Isaac Simonis, 441 Horning Road, Pittsburgh, PA.
Stevie Hostler.
There's no address.
Okay, then move on. Brian Jocelyn.
I can read it. I found
wait.
the address. That's what I was
Okay.
looking for. Brian Jocelyn, 124 Topaz Court. I am a parent of 2 Bethel Park students who attend George Washington Elementary School. I am asking you to support a total return of school classroom for those who are interested in receiving instruction in the physical classroom this school year. The Board of School Directors' primary responsibility is to provide high-quality education to all students. Receiving instruction in the physical classroom is critical to my children obtaining a high-quality education from Bethel Park School District. Remote learning has been demonstrated to be an inferior method of receiving instruction compared to learning in the physical classroom for my children and has caused a lack of education during the spring 2020 school year. Continued remote learning will increase the educational achievement gap for my children compared to the education received via instruction in the physical classroom. Teachers instructing students in the physical classroom is essential to Bethel Park School District, providing high-quality education, especially to the most vulnerable students, i.e. elementary and special education students. Highly independent and self-motivated students can teach themselves via remote learning. However, most elementary and special education students need the in-person, real-time learning support provided by teachers in the physical classroom that cannot be achieved via remote learning. Remote learning also has a disproportionately negative impact on the quality of education received by students that need to learn support compared to more independent students. I know benefit of having students receive instruction in the physical classroom this school year outweigh the risk of contact transmitting COVID-19 at school, especially with the implementation of COVID-19 risk mitigation plan proposed by the Bethel Park School District. All of the objective quality evidence obtained to the date about COVID-19 virus indicates that most people, especially children, do not have a negative outcome, i.e. or severe illness or death, if they come in contact with the virus. Evidence collected over multiple decades consistently shows that the lack of quality education has a lifelong negative impact. Throughout this pandemic, essential workers have been asked to continue their jobs and provide the same quality of work they have always provided to support their community. Bethel Park School District teachers are essential workers, and they need to instruct teachers in the physical classroom in order to continue to give students the high-quality education the Bethel Park community expects. I believe the plan proposed earlier this summer by the Bethel Park School District to totally reopen the schools for all students and staff for the 2021 school year is a right course of action. Please support their total return to school.
Okay, the next one does not have an address. The next one is Thomas Archer, which does have an address.
Thomas Archer, 1012 Willow Glen Drive. The slide that covers seating and buses indicates that there will be space for symptomatic children to sit. Could you provide an explanation regarding what sort of symptoms this refers to?
Maybe we should answer that one. Mr. Vaughn, can somebody talk about the bus and the symptomatic student? Why would a symptomatic student go on a bus?
Absolutely. You know, it's been mentioned earlier. So symptomatic, a lot of the COVID symptomatic symptoms are there. If a student is standing at a bus stop, we simply cannot turn students away. So we've afforded space at the beginning of the bus so we would not have them walk past multiple students at the same time. If a student was symptomatic or not feeling well, then when they get to school, we would be able to possibly triage and evaluate that situation. Dr. J. do you have
Yeah,
anything
we're
to
going
add?
to ask parents to do the screening at home. We're asking them to check the symptoms at home. The issue is you might have a kid that, I know this sounds crazy, but develop that symptom on the way to school. They may get to the bus stop. There may not be a parent available to take them home. So we are liable to take care of this child. So we obviously would keep them isolated on the bus, get them into the building, go see the school nurse, and then quarantine the student within the building, and then call the parents and do all that.
Thank you for answering that. I just thought that was an important one for us to address at this time. The next couple ones don't have any, the next one with an address is Jim Sabula, 5510 Beverly Court. Thank you for the opportunity to submit comments to the board for consideration at the August 11th, 2020 special board meeting. On July 28th, the board approved by an 8-1 vote a plan to return to full in-person instructional model for the 2021 school year. That plan provided reasonable safeguards, allowed options for those unable or uncomfortable with participating in in-person instruction, was consistent with the views of the parents who overwhelmingly supported a full in-person return in the survey. The revised plan proposal calls for full online learning for 1 month, then a shift to hybrid until January when full in-person would resume. This represents a dramatic and abrupt change in the direction from the plan approved just 2 weeks ago. The revised plan document and accompanying presentation do not provide sufficient information to indicate why such a significant change in direction is being considered. I would appreciate some comments from either the administration or board on the points below. The proposed plan does not indicate what data was used to determine what a change in direction needed to be considered. Recent state data for Allegheny County indicates 7-day improvements in key virus metrics. There's no clarity in the proposed plan as to the purpose of the full virtual instruction during the month of September, such as what is expected to be achieved in that 1 month period and why it is necessary. The presentation notes that this plan is crafted around CDC, ACHD, PA Department of Health guidelines. There's been no material change in return to school guidance from these organizations over the past 2 weeks, and the proposed plan makes no mention of what specifically in the reference guidance is now driving this proposed change. In-person class activities such as science labs are critical to students in such classes, particularly at the AP level. The proposed plan does not discuss how a meaningful hands-on lab experience be provided in a virtual environment. The proposed plan is silent on what specific metrics will be used to determine that learning outcomes are being successfully achieved in a virtual environment. This is of particular importance since the asynchronous online offerings in spring 2020 were not of high quality. The proposed plan relies on the implementation of Schoology learning management system. There's no information provided as to the district's readiness to successfully use this system at large. Training for staff and students, for example, is not addressed. Further, the revised plan proposal provides no discussion on how the negative impacts of not returning to in-person instruction are going to be addressed and mitigated. The American Academy of Pediatrics strongly advocates that all policy considerations for the coming school year should start with the goal of having students physically present in school. The importance of in-person learning is well documented, and there's already evidence of the negative impacts on children because of school closures in the spring of 2020. And that's aap.org. As a person with 2 children in Bethel Park schools, I believe strongly that the negative effects of not returning to in-person instruction at the start of the school year far outweigh any risk of illness due to the virus. I urge the board to vote no on an approval of the revised plan proposal and to continue with the prior plan for full return as approved on July 28th.
Hey Pam, I think we maybe missed Nicole Dempsey.
Was there a address?
Oh, okay, maybe we didn't then. Okay, sorry about that.
Stan Brusowski?
I could take this one.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Stan Bruzowski, 301 Church Road. Dear members of the Bethel Park School Board, I am writing as a concerned parent of 2 students enrolled in the Bethel Park School District. I understand that the decisions you are being asked to make are not easy ones, but I must make my views known to you as I believe that they are shared by the majority of the students and parents of our district. I was witness to the devastating loss that last year's graduating seniors experienced, and I am looking ahead to a coming school year that appears likely to continue to harm our students because of a further loss of participation in classes and activities. These students want and need to return to the classroom instruction, not only for the sake of their academic progress, but also for their mental and emotional health as well. It is easy to listen to the strident voices of those who have become frightened of the COVID-19 virus. It would be easy to be convinced by those voices that the safe choice is the best choice and that the classroom instruction, as well as sports, music, and other activities should be curtailed wherever possible. However, you have circulated a survey among the parents of the students enrolled in the district, and I would ask that you place a greater weight on the feedback that you have obtained through that survey than you place on the very vocal minority who would see everything shut down in the name of safety. Just because one opinion is being shouted loudest does not necessarily mean that it is shared by the majority. I've spoken with many other parents in the district. The vast majority of those with whom I have spoken share my desire that the students be permitted to return to classroom instruction and to the other school-related activities to which they have committed themselves and which they love. Especially concerning to us are the high school students for whom these few short years are formative and foundational to their futures as young adults. How can we tell our incoming seniors who have worked for 11 years to put themselves in the positions of leadership that many have achieved, that their senior year is going to be postponed or canceled? I understand and respect those who choose to isolate themselves to be protected from COVID-19. I do believe that we should make every effort to accommodate those for whom remote instruction is necessary, both for students and for faculty members who may feel that their health or that a family member is in jeopardy. But I would also suggest that those who do not feel nearly as threatened by the virus should have their wishes and their choices equally respected and represented. We can all agree that sensible measures should be taken to provide as safe and clean an environment as possible for our students, but we are not prepared as a district for wide-scale remote instruction and the cancellation of the classroom experience and other school activities which are a part of the identities of the students who participate in them will cause far-reaching and lasting academic, emotional, and psychological harm to our students to an extent that seems hard to reconcile against the COVID-19 data for their age group. I applaud your efforts to provide alternatives for those who are not prepared to return to in-class instruction, but I think you will see by the survey responses that you have already received that the majority of your constituents had expectations that their students would be returning to the classroom this fall and to the school activities that have become a part of who these students are. This most recent school board election was one that saw a changing of the guard in Bethel Park. Many of us who helped to bring about that change are watching to see in what direction you will go. As parents of these students, we have helped to put you in offices, and we expect that your actions reflect our will as voters and as members of the community. I do not envy the difficult choices you have in front of you as you consider the options. Please do not forget that school life is the biggest part of what many of these students have known in their young lives, and we must make it our highest priority to give them the opportunity to safeguard that which is critical to them but is now at risk of being taken away. Thank you for your time and attention. Sincerely, Stan Bruzowski.
Yeah, I think Lauren, Inglis is the next one.
Just a correction, Mr. Brusowski's address is 3213 Postgate,
Okay,
not 301 Church Road.
okay, thank you.
So I'll get Lauren's. We're at
Lauren Inglis, Lauren Moore.
I have a Sarah Braum is next.
Sarah.
I don't,
yeah.
I don't think there's an address.
I have it. Sarah Braum, 3957 Mimosa Drive. I'm very concerned with the fact that the kids will only have 2 synchronous days of learning per week. That is not enough to represent being in the classroom. The asynchronous days are not true education. We had videos and websites in the spring and did not work. Why are the synchronous days split up between the kids per grade? Why can the teachers not have 4 synchronous days for the entire class and 1 asynchronous days? If 5 days online is a must, make more days synchronous. Sarah Braum.
Next one, I think, is Fred DePasquale from 5000 Heartland Drive, Bethel Park. Question, why aren't all of the kids doing virtual learning at the same time? Why is it being split into 2 days? Virtually, alphabetically, and 2 days non-virtually? Example, if my daughter was in chemistry with someone with the last name beginning with an R in regular school, why wouldn't she be in the same class virtually with that person? Thank you. Fred DePasquale.
I'm having some trouble, so go ahead. And
Ryan
find the
Gallagher.
next-
Ryan
Find the
Gallagher.
next one.
I'll take it from Ryan Gallagher, 354 Church Road. Hello, thank you for everything you're doing to prepare for this unprecedented school year. I have a couple suggestions that I hope are being considered for students choosing the virtual option. I think learning teaching may work best if there is an elementary teacher for each grade dedicated solely to students choosing the virtual option. My concern is that in-person students will have the attention of the teacher otherwise, and the virtual students will not be able to participate equally. I also feel it is very important that students should have live interactive learning with their teachers each day, whether they are in person or virtually learning. Do-it-yourself learning may be a fine option for middle school and high school, but it does not work for elementary age children still learning how to read. I'm sure you have already considered both of these things, but I wanted to provide my feedback in case these concerns have not been raised. Again, thank you for all the hard work and doing the best you can to develop a plan to help all students.
So that was, what was that last name? Sorry.
Right? That was
Ryan Gallagher. I think the next one is.
For Mr. Nagel, you said, what was the address? Because there's no address on the email.
I
Yeah,
have
it is.
Yeah, there is. It's
354
at the
Church
bottom.
Road.
It's at the bottom.
It's at the
At the
bottom.
very bottom, okay. I know there are hundreds of these emails, so I'm having a hard time trying to keep up.
So I think the next one was Kim Bassetti. Kim Bassetti, 3324 Forest Road. Bethel Park School District Board members, while I do not envy the decision you will have to make, I'd like you to at least make one. There's no right decision, nor one that will make everybody happy, but one needs to be made and it needs to be one that at least makes sense for teachers, parents, and students. I understand that you have reservations and fear about COVID-19. I respect their fear, their choices, and their decisions for themselves and their families. COVID-19 is a virus. It's not going anywhere, and based on the data from the county and the number in our immediate area within that county, we are at a very low risk. We never sheltered in place in the hopes of eradicating this, and a vaccine is not a magic wand that will make it disappear. At some point, we need to move forward, protect the most vulnerable, but we have got to get back to some form of normalcy. And I wholeheartedly believe school is the first step in that return. I support a 5-day return to face-to-face instruction. That was my choice and my decision, and I didn't make it lightly. I say this with an immunocompromised child at home, whom respiratory issues are a big deal. Flu season, allergy season, or any virus for that matter can cause complications. We manage her illness because she deserves to be a kid, a happy one that doesn't live in fear every day because of what ifs, because frankly, there's no way to live. She and all other kids deserve to have something to look forward to again, rather than in constant fear, anxiety, and disappointment they have had to endure over the last 5 months. When is it time? When is it enough? We would like that concrete date, but we all know that isn't reality. 4 weeks, 4 days, 9 weeks, 9 months, another year. If we let it, it goes on forever. You voted for a return to 5-day face-to-face, and then you unilaterally scrapped it. Then you give us, for public consumption, the most nonsensical return to school plan I've ever seen or read to date, a hybrid virtual option, because we need smaller virtual class sizes and less instruction time. Why? If a teacher is expected to teach 2 groups 4 days a week with no need for distancing or face-to-face instruction, I'd really like to hear how teaching 4 days a week to all students in the class virtually is somehow not an option for this return to school plan. Better yet, why not 5 days a week of instruction? Does this mean that the teachers are expected to pre-tape lessons that they will be delivering live? Why are we asking them to do double work? Do the Monday, Wednesday group learn in person what the Tuesday, Thursday kids do in person, or do they receive different lessons on different days? I find it counterproductive and, to be honest, ineffective and unfair to expect one group to obtain the information independently while another group participates in group instruction. I expect the specifics and thoughts behind this thrown together option would be before us 24 hours before being voted on, will be explained in much greater detail. I have an elementary student in the district, a very young 7-year-old who did poorly during the distance learning thrown together at the abrupt end of last year. According to the NEA in 2017, virtual options are never an appropriate part of the public education system, as they cannot provide students with a well-rounded, complete educational experience. Unfortunately, it appears we have no other options other than this one anymore, since the face-to-face instruction in any capacity has been removed from the table for at least 4 weeks. Experts also indicate that in order for students to be successful, they must be well-organized, self-motivated, and possess high degree of time management skills. I don't know how many incoming second graders that possess any of these skills. Mine can't tell time, let alone manage it. Based on just those few examples, it makes little sense to cut instruction to 2 days and promote independent study for 3. It isn't especially effective for most older learners, but it is especially ineffective for younger learners in this district. Studies sorry, I gotta scroll. Studies also show that programs are further weakened if facilitators are not adequately prepared to function in a virtual classroom. How many district teachers do we have that teach virtual classes on a regular basis? Why 3 weeks before the start of school are we training our teachers on a platform available since before the end of last school year? And we are supposed to trust that this year will look vastly different from the end of last year, that the district's virtual option will provide a complete and total educational experience to all who choose to follow that route and those of us forced into it. I'd be interested to hear what those who opted to skip professional online charter schools with 5-day-a-week face-to-face instruction in favor of your option have to say about this plan, and how many are now scrambling looking for a better option. Our kids need their teachers, and I believe with all my heart that the teachers in this district need our kids. Whether it be face-to-face or virtually, this teacher-student relationship deserves the chance to develop. If you're unwilling to facilitate any form of face-to-face instruction rather than making an impersonal option more impersonal by limiting these teachers and student interactions, why not try to make the best of a bad situation, allow there to be more guided instruction, more interaction and content discussion between the students. They've literally been prisoners in their own homes and with very little returning to what they once enjoyed doing now. You may want to keep them chained to a computer with little interaction for more time than they have already given to you. These kids deserve some sort of normal, and if 5 days isn't what you're going to give them in person, then they deserve the closest they can get virtually, not watered down, sorry excuse hybrid model. Thank you for your time.
Amy Farrell, 6,000 Puddingstone Lane. Concerning the reopening plan, why are the lessons not synchronous live each day while the students are home September 1st through October 5th? If your entire audience is home, you should be able to instruct them all at once. The teachers have instructed entire classes in the school. Why split them out of school? If you need a day for testing, why not live instruction Monday through Thursday and then Friday for testing and review, and for students to contact teachers with questions via email? Your plan makes it seem as though the teachers will be repeating lessons. This scenario would cut the amount of learning to half. Number two, once we move to hybrid, what options will be made available if a student tests positive and needs to be quarantined? Will the students within the period or within the pod plus teacher move to all virtual for the 2-week quarantine period? Once quarantine is over, do they move back into hybrid? Will the switching back and forth be available and seamless? Thank you very much, Amy.
Jennifer Hayes.
Next one, Jennifer Hayes.
Yeah, Jennifer Hayes. 131 Great Walk Drive. I am writing as a professional with a doctorate degree who taught in higher education and is a parent of a BPHS senior. The school board should be ashamed of themselves with the abrupt change in reopening plan and clear lack of consideration for the academic well-being of our community children. It is evident that their heads have been buried in the sand for at least the last 5 months with no appropriate plan or discussion with educators or families impacted by this. It saddens me to watch the deterioration of the quality of education for taxpayers, or to give the committed and highly educated teachers the opportunity to participate in the appropriate planning of student instruction. Does the board seriously think that a blended model of synchronous and asynchronous simultaneously will be in anyone's best interest? If you're not planning a substantial in-person return until January, get your act together and offer online instruction that is on par with the caliber of the institution's community deserves.
And we have a number that don't have addresses in them. I think the next one with an address is Schumacher. You want to read it?
Yeah, sure. This is from Aaron and Darren Schumacher, 5897 Bryan Drive. I'm writing to express my disappointment and disapproval of the intended delay of school opening, planning to move to 100% online learning for the first couple of months. Where is this last minute change coming from? I was under the impression that we would return to normal with recommended safety measures in place. The majority of the community requested. Why is it a major change being made 2 weeks before the start of the school year? Once daycare is up and running, have been successfully doing so for many months now. If someone is uncomfortable sending their child to school, I am all for the child learning online. But what about the rest of us families who are confident in learning full time in person? Because of your delay in changing plans, we no longer have another option. Husband and I both graduated from the Park High School. Our bring it on. Multi-generational PPP family, obviously, high school. My children are the third generation to go to the PPP school. That being said, we must stay strongly committed to our children. That is returning to school full time, in person, not 100% online. I'm confident that with proper hand washing, social distancing, mask wearing, and monitoring for signs of illness, our children can safely return to school. The risk of not going back to school far away can be lost. We need to offer stability and a routine for our children. They must be able to socialize with peers, meet in person with their teachers, play sports, take part in the school board, ultimate learning process, and so much more. Online learning is not a substitute. We are robbing our children
your
of online
microphone.
learning, world that do not go back full time. My husband and I are very concerned about the effects of not returning. In addition, my husband and I both work full-time, and I am facing having to leave my job in order to be at home to help my children with online learning. Because let's face it, online learning requires an adult presence to ensure proper understanding of the material. We supported online learning back in March when times were uncertain and everything was shutting down. But it was a major challenge and a huge stress on our family. I fear my kids will not be able to excel with the attended plan for upcoming school year. They will fall far behind where they should be. I am not a teacher. The plan is not acceptable to replace an education, the one that we are paying a lot of taxes for. If we wanted to do online learning, then we would send our children to cyber school. Again, online learning is not a substitution in in-person education. I cannot stress that enough. We are confident to send our children to school in person, full-time on 8/26. We urge you to listen to the parents of the children that make up the school district. We must go back to school. Your decision this evening has a significant impact upon our family.
Thank you. The next one that has an address is Karen Urbanic Gangon. 1175 Airedale Drive. We should not put our kids in classrooms during a pandemic. Please do what is best for the students and families. They will be carrying this loathsome disease home as well. We have the means to teach and learn remotely, and that is the only responsible and compassionate option during these unprecedented times. Do what is right. Keep our kids home, at least until January, please.
Next one's Natalie Harris, 1521 Holly Hill Drive. Bethel Park School District and School Board. I have many concerns regarding the full remote virtual instruction back to school plan that was released yesterday. I gave myself time to think about the whole plan before emailing. As I stated in my email last Friday to the board, I still do not understand why BP does not have two options for students and parents. The parents that choose to keep their children home for virtual learning have the resources and means of virtual learning for their children. I have an incoming fifth grader and a kindergartner. My fifth grader has had a difficult and negative experience with online learning in the spring. Both of my children are excited to be in school, even if it is only 2 days a week. I am a teacher and excited to be in school with my students with our district hybrid plan. My husband and I both work. Our children will be with neighbors, grandparents, and daycare during the day, Monday through Friday. There cannot be expectations for students to be online for the live instruction during the day. My own children will be at different places while we work. Will this instruction be recorded so then when we return home, they can complete their lessons and assignments in the evening? I will be spending my evenings after work having my children view their lessons and complete their assignments after teaching all day. I hope there will be extended due dates, not daily due dates. Will all students receive Chromebooks or laptops? Siblings should not be expected to share since they will have live learning at the same time. Why two groups with remote learning? Why is synchronous learning not taking place 5 days a week? If the district board is thinking that all students will be at home and online, why can't they have live lessons daily with their full class? I am thinking this decision is to have small groups so teachers can see all students via live streaming, since you can only see about 16 to 17 students via Google Hangout or Zoom at a time. But this cannot be expected for students to be on all day on these designated days due to childcare reasons. If this is the plan, BP students will be far behind other districts since one lesson will be completed over the course of 2 days. Group A Monday, Wednesday, Group B Tuesday, Thursday. I'm assuming the asynchronous learning days will be no new instruction if there is not a live lesson. In addition, speaking from a teacher point of view, this seems like double the work. Teaching the same lesson live twice to be able to answer questions or giving student feedback help during those live lessons and or having to record lessons on the asynchronous days. Bordering districts are in school. Peters Township, full 5 days in school option. Upper St. Clair, Baldwin, and South Park. They have 2 options. Again, why not Bethel Park? Why not try a hybrid model? I'm featuring a hybrid back to school plan, and while we have challenges, teachers and admin are working together to make the best of it. Most important goal is that all students will return to school by the end of the school year, but is in staggering amounts, starting with the smallest class size on August 27th. What is the difference between now and October? Why not a staggered start now before doing remote instruction? If students even go back in October, there may be more families wanting to send their children back to school if remote instruction is too difficult or does not work within their schedules. There will be more students going back in October than at the start of the school year. How will books materials be delivered? If we do not have the option to send our children to school, I would like a paper materials for my children to use at home instead of doing everything on the computer. I am sure all of these books and supplies have been ordered using tax dollars and concerned how these materials will be delivered to my children to utilize. Kindergarten skills and standards include cutting, gluing, and many other fine motor skills. These cannot be done virtually. Will these materials be sent and delivered as well? Related arts classes, how can these be live sessions? Art materials delivered to complete art projects to cover the grade level standards. Physical education cannot be taught holding onto a Chromebook, nor can it be taught practicing these skills by yourself, as ed. Jobs, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, paraeducators, school nurses, are they not going to be working this school year? This is always going to be an issue no matter when you decide for students to go back. After speaking with the doctor last night, he stated science proves students K to 6 should be back in school. Again, with proper precautions and using PPE, BP students can be back in school. Just need the district to take the time to properly plan for it. I feel that BP doesn't want to take the time at this point. I hope you will reconsider this plan and provide 2 options for students. Thank you for your time.
Brian Hosco, hello. I wanted to take a minute to, the address, Brian Hosco, 2970 O'Neill Drive. Hello, I wanted to take a minute to express my concern regarding this plan to return to school. I will start by saying that I am fully in favor, as well as was the majority of the district, in returning to school 5 days per week. This is a real shame that the plug was pulled like it was at the recent meeting. It would seem that it is not going to be an option at this point, so I will turn my attention in these comments elsewhere. If we are to have the type of environment proposed where the students will only be doing a virtual environment or a hybrid environment with attending school 2 days per week, I believe it is critical for the time with the teacher, in person or virtual, to be spent only on reading, writing, and math. I understand the circumstances are unique and decisions are going to be made that will not please everyone. It is acceptable to do what we can to make this work, but it is unacceptable to focus any of the valuable in-person time with a teacher on anything but the core education topics. Topics such as art, history, health, gym, music, etc. are not things that should be done during this time. I am happy to help with those assignments at home, but when push comes to shove, the core subjects are where the attention needs to be. I cannot have the foundation that needs to be set in first grade lost because of this. He will not get this time back, and it could set him back unimaginably. The level of frustration that the majority of parents feel out there is off the charts, and that is because this is an extreme overreaction to a situation that is primarily politically driven. I am happy to speak further to anyone who would like to discuss further.
Okay, I think the next one's Nathan Graff, 1060 Surrey Woods Road. I am writing to inform the board that I am very angry about the terrible opening plans being considered, and I'd like the board to reconsider still doing the 5-day in-person with a remote option approach. I also am writing to inform all parents who are listening that there is still something you can do to effectively change and make this year one better for your children. I know that, like me, so many of you have felt powerless recently. As far as opening plans, the plan approved on July 28th is the best plan for those that have been discussed because it provides a good option for both those who are afraid of COVID-19 and those who aren't. Details were lacking, but it was a good start. The two most recent ideas to offer the 2-day-a-week of in-person education or to, in addition, offer no in-person education for the first month, a time which has no basis, does not meet the needs of those who want to have their kids receive in-person education. 70% of parents who responded to the survey said that they wanted their kids to have in-person education. And as you know, if you do not provide this option, you are not only depriving our children of the interactions they so desperately need to grow, you are also significantly impacting literally hundreds, if not thousands of people's jobs and forms of income who depend on their kids going to school so that they can go to work. The excuses I hear for not providing 5-day-a-week options are not acceptable. Most recently, I've heard it stated that since so many of us wanted to send our kids back to school, you won't be able to provide properly socially distance all of them. Well, that directive doesn't require the school to meet both the 6-foot rule and wear a mask at the same time. If in certain classes the 6-foot rule cannot be met, then kids can wear a mask. Sure, there will be occasional kids who can't wear a mask for medical reasons, but I find it highly unlikely the numbers will be high enough not to be accommodating. Likewise, there has been an excuse that the board needs to think about the safety of the teachers. Since it is known that the virus is much less harmful to children than the flu, for example, the director of the CDC recently said that a children is 5 or 6 more times likely to die from the flu than COVID-19. But why should a teacher be exempt from teaching in person so that so many others who are working today have to do their jobs in person? There is no directive from the governor to say teachers can't teach in person. Teachers have always assumed the risk of getting sick from kids, and if they are particularly worried about the virus, they should probably find an alternative job, helping with the remote option or working somewhere else if necessary. Offering in-person education is critical to the development of our children and should not generally not be optional for teachers, just like working at a restaurant in person is not optional for those workers. It should be noted, though, that the CDC and the American Academy of Pediatrics have both presented data that shows very low transmission rate from the virus from children to child and from child to adult. I provide references to this data in my July 28th public comment. As far as the remote option, although it is not what I prefer for my kids, I suggest having webcams in every room so that those who choose it can have their kids learn the same thing as those attending in person learn also in a live setting. This would make it easier for kids to transition in and out of the classroom as needed, and for teachers to not need to have multiple lesson plans. Plum is doing this as part of offering a 5-day in-person education per week. South Fayette and Peters Township are the other school districts planning to offer 5 days of in-person schooling with remote options. All Catholic schools in the Pittsburgh area are also offering 5 days a week of in-person education. As for my first point, I would like to encourage all parents who are angry like I am about the lack of good options being offered to our Bethel Park kids to grab your masks and a sign. If you can make one quickly, get in your car and drive to the school board meeting to peacefully protest outside the building as soon as the public comments are being read. This is your chance. If the school board ruins your child's education and or your job this year and you don't take an hour out of your night to make your message clear, then maybe we will all get what we deserve for not speaking up. 600 Norwin School District parents signed a petition and a plan to protest at their next school board meeting because their school is talking about not offering a 5 days of in-person education. Do we care about our kids less than they care about theirs? I hope and pray that this is not the case and we have a big turnout. The address is 301 Church Road and the parking lot is filled. The high school parking lot is nearby. Again, please grab your signs, your mask and a sign if you can make one quickly and drive down towards 301 Church Road as soon as public comments are done being read. Thank you, and God bless those who plan to take a stand, your fellow concerned parent.
Okay, I think the next one's Kathleen McDermott, 733 Galway Drive. This is 100% unacceptable for a municipality such as Bethel Park. The school board looked like fowls. Not only has Bethel Park School District had 5 months to figure this out, but with the virtual world we live in today, she's been working on a plan to be able to give the students 100% synchronous live ready to go at any given moment. This plan would have been a great asset to the students in situations such as inclement weather or heating, excuse me, or water issues that could arise, just to mention a few. Shame on you, Bethel Park School District. I've lived in the municipality for 45 years. My children and now grandchildren are attending the school district. We used to be in the top 10 schools. What happened? I'll tell you what happened. You made my property value go down, and my very young grandchildren are receiving a very unacceptable education. Other school districts, such as Montour, had their plan of action figured out by last month in the event that could not open on time. And by the way, it sounded like a really good plan. Major companies and corporations back in March when we shut down were able to get their systems updated and be able to communicate live with their employees all across the United States. What were you people doing? If you were watching the news and following the CDC, you would have realized that opening schools in the fall would probably be a challenge. Why can you only teach live for 2 days per week and they are on their own for the other 3 days? Seems to me like you should be able to have all the children on live together. Children of all ages are accustomed to being online, so this would be second nature to them. I have a 5-year-old grandson staring kindergarten, and he has a disability. Just how is he going to type a question to his teacher? It's not like he is capable at that age to take notes and highlight things he needs clarification on. We need to be 100% live 5 days per week. The residents of this community pay too much in tax dollars to accept the plan of action that the school is proposing. What you should have done was surveyed the parents to see if their children would have had the capability to be online 5 days live and what children would not. And you could have taped these classes, and those children could have watched their classes on parents' time frame. And perhaps those are the children you send back to the classrooms first, since they may not have a parent or grandparent available to stay at home. Perhaps we need to hire qualified individuals and pay them a small salary for this part-time job, because these individuals have really botched this issue. We need people in this position who understands the issues at hand, who care about the students and residents. Holding a position on the school board should be taken very seriously, not a position that feeds the egos of some residents of this community. The residents in the community pay too much in school taxes. Remember, bad school districts mean lower property values and in turn attract a much lower class of people. Good luck with that.
That's it?
Is it Lauren Moore?
Lauren Moore?
Yeah, I'll take that. Lauren Moore, 5016 Lindenmere Avenue. Dear Bethel Park School Board members, I am very concerned about some of the possible plans in place with virtual and hybrid learning. I feel that kids with parents who can dedicate time to teach during the day will be more successful, and the kids who have 2 working parents who cannot dedicate the same amount of time will suffer. This type of education is not equal and fair for all students. How can we test and evaluate all students the same if their learning environments are different? I have a son entering kindergarten, and he will be placed in daycare during the day if schools do not open. Daycare informed me they cannot facilitate different virtual learning for the kids. My son will have to learn with me in the evenings. He will not be getting any interactive school/synchronous learning, and that is not fair for him. He should not suffer because he has 2 out of the house hardworking parents. My daughter has an IEP and has access to a para during the school day. She will be on her own with lessons during the day. It will be very hard for her to complete assignments and live up to her full potential without the proper accommodations. She thrives in school with the right accommodations, and now these accommodations are being unfairly taken away from her. I don't see how the same system we have set up for her can be implemented with distance learning. I really hope the district reconsiders and offers in-person schooling. School district owes it to our children to give everyone a fair and equal chance.
Someone want to read Barbara Friday?
Barbara Friday, 955 Clifton Road. Hello, thank you to the administration, staff, and school board making these hard decisions during this time. I feel the proposed changes are the best plan forward to keep students, teachers, and staff safe while launching a consistent learning approach. While we all have different opinions about reopening fully hybrid remote, we can all agree we want the best education for our children. I feel starting the school year all virtual will allow teachers the time to learn the new platform and everyone to adjust. Everyone can agree we don't want a repeat of March, April, and June. I think the decision to slowly reopen and be virtual in the beginning will ensure safety for our children and teachers and best learning for our children. Thank you.
Samantha DeFurio?
First off, thank you for considering the hybrid model as many other districts. First off, thank you for considering the hybrid model as many other districts are using this method going forward. While I understand that it will cause some difficulty with childcare for working family schedules, mine included, I am concerned regarding the consistency of schooling and the overall sanitation of the building. I would like the school board to consider the following model: Monday, Tuesday, Group A, attend school; Group B, online; Wednesday, deep clean the school, all online; Thursday, Friday, Group A online, Group B in school. Therefore, the germs from Group A remain with Group A and vice versa with Group B. Thank you for your consideration. Samantha DeFurio, 2967 Kings Mill Road.
Jennifer Carpano?
I got it. 2621 Bethel Crest Drive. I want to first acknowledge that this has been a difficult time for school district administrators and the school board who are presented with information changing daily. It is a balancing act with the health, safety, and the academic considerations. However, I am very disappointed that BPSD is planning to begin instruction remotely. School districts all over the surrounding areas are able to give the option of sometime in-person or remote instruction for families with various situations. Without this choice, families are forced to find and pay for child care 5 days a week. This doesn't even include the amount of time and money that we will need for instruction or facilitation that will be necessary for the effective online experience for our children. The research already shows that online instruction doesn't compare to in-person instruction, especially for elementary age students. I'll add to that in saying that the hybrid or all in-person option would far outweigh any type of instruction that will be provided remotely. Please continue to think of the families of Bethel Park when making these important decisions. As an elected school board member, you hold the keys to the perception of our school district and the achievement of our children as we navigate these new conditions.
Okay, the next one with an address is Alyssa Garnetti.
Robert Bassetti?
Garnetti.
It's
No, there's a Robert Bassetti. Came in at 126, 3324 Forest Road.
I don't know, I don't know why. Go ahead.
Yeah, Robert Bassetti, 3324 Forest Road, members of the Bethel Park School Board. I'm a parent of a 7-year-old that will be entering the 2nd grade this year. As her parents, my wife and I have the responsibility to make sure she receives the best education possible and is afforded every opportunity for her to succeed in life. The recent reversal of the board's vote to return to in-person learning has made that near impossible. When we gave her the news yesterday that the board decided that she would not be returning to school, she broke down in tears. I'm sure that this reaction is very common amongst the youngest students in the district. As a society, we cannot keep taking things away from our children. Robbing them of their childhood is unacceptable to me. It should be to all of you. I understand and sympathize with those. Hold on. I understand and sympathize with those that are concerned about the virus. There are parents that do not want to have their children in an environment where they may be exposed to the virus and are choosing to keep their children home. That is their choice, and I respect their decision. However, a one-size-fits-all approach to this situation would be detrimental to many children. Many children, especially the young elementary students, will fall way behind. I have some questions. The overwhelming majority of parents in the district have supported the return to in-person learning, yet the board has decided to cave to a few and remove the in-person learning option. Why? The current plan is a hybrid online model. Why does this have to be hybrid? Why can't the teachers provide live instruction 5 days per week? Will the district be providing computers, laptops, or tablets for each student? If so, how will they be distributed? If not, why? Why were the parents deceived, misled when it came to in-person learning option? During this time of deception, parents were discouraged from signing up for online charter schools. Now that the deadline to sign up for the charter school has passed, the parents are forced to have the children participate in a subpar version of online learning. The distance learning provided this past spring was disgraceful and ineffective. Will the board make changes to the hybrid online model or get it up to the standards of the charter schools? Only having one live instruction 2 days per week and 3 days of pre-recorded lessons is unacceptable. What will the pre-recorded lessons entail? Will the children just be given links to YouTube videos again? How will parents obtain assistance for their child that is underperforming or needs additional instruction? How are you balancing the desire of the few to keep all the kids home with the detrimental effects that the social isolation will have on children? This doesn't apply with our household's financial situation, but how are the households that require both parents to be employed supposed to handle that? Yes, I'm aware that teachers are not babysitters. Many parents work while their children are at school. The majority of people in the district elected you to your current position. Since this is fact, and it is also a fact that the majority of parents in the district support some type of in-person instruction, how do you justify ignoring the will of the people? My family moved to this district to provide our child with the best education possible in a district with a great reputation. It's my opinion that what you are proposing this coming year is absurd and borderline criminal. You are stealing from these children and doing the community a huge disservice with this fear-driven hybrid online plan. I propose that the 5-day in-person learning plan be reinstituted for those parents that desire it. For those that choose to keep their children at home, they can go with the online option. This can be achieved quite easily by having the in-person learning live streamed on the web. If a child becomes ill or has to miss school for some reason, they will be able to view the live stream and not fall behind. All the students will be learning the same thing at the same time. The students will be able to participate in class, and the social isolation of children will be minimized. It's just common sense, something that is severely lacking with the current online hybrid plan. Thank you. Robert Bossetti, 3324 Forest Road.
At this time, I'd like to tell the public, as per consultation with our solicitor, we are not accepting any more public comments after 10:10 tonight, and we will read all the ones that we have received so far. Also, if someone has submitted more than one comment, we're going to read one comment from each individual.
Next one's Alyssa Garnetti, 3945 Mimosa Drive. What metrics and duration will be used to determine if the classroom and full classroom instruction can be accelerated in the schedule? Will Bethel Park, South Hills Region, or Allegheny County incident and positivity rates be considered? Next one. Silman? Stephanie Silman.
The next one doesn't have them.
It goes up to Stephanie Silman.
Is that where we're at?
Okay, I got it. Stephanie Silman, 5087 Sherwood. Dear members and board administration, thank you for your countless hours. Each of you have contributed in the process of planning a safe return for the students and staff during 2021 school year. I do not envy your positions most days, but it has been especially true over the last several months as our unique circumstances have required you to make some very difficult decisions with no clear right answers. Your service and guidance are immensely valuable and very much appreciated. Unfortunately, I'm reaching out to express my sincere and extreme disappointment in the proposed plan to return to school this fall. I love that the start date for students has been pushed back, allowing for what I would imagine to be some much-needed additional teacher training and preparation time. But I have serious concerns about BP's choices to move to an all online, and mostly asynchronous education plan for students. The survey that the families completed communicated a pretty strong desire to have students return to the classroom. I know that all parties need to be on board with that decision, though, so perhaps there is some kind of alternative ideal that still can be explored. What about having teachers who are uncomfortable returning to the classroom instead stream themselves to their students who are attending school live from home or in a COVID-friendly, socially distanced classroom at school, under the supervision of a non-teacher, an adult with the appropriate clearances and willingness to be present in a physical classroom to maintain order, assist with IT issues, and help connect students to the appropriate resources teachers when needed. This keeps our teachers who need to stay home safe and allows for the opportunity for in-person attendance for those students with families whose families desire and require it. Having the district open for in-person instruction would also enable students to participate in sports and extracurricular activities as appropriate, and while following existing guidelines and restrictions that many of them have dedicated their better parts of their lives to. This will allow those who truly cannot access their education remotely, those with extreme learning needs or without access to the proper materials at home, to be provided with a free and appropriate public education in their school district and reduce the need for out-of-district placement requests, which can be very, very costly to our district. Yes, some creative solutions like these would create an increased expense for the district, but that may be necessary evil in the short term in order to save the district in the long term. Asynchronous learning for most students will not be beneficial. The proposed plan is going to cause families who were on the fence about their education plans for their students to abandon ship and enroll their students elsewhere, taking precious funding from our local district during a very critical time. The district that these families leave during the pandemic may not look the same when they return after the pandemic is over. A loss of students and loss of funding means hard decisions will need to be made about staffing and program offerings. I think every possible alternative needs to be exhausted before the board approves a fully remote, mostly asynchronous model for schooling for our kids. I understand that there are many factors at play, including contract requirements with multiple bargaining units, and I implore all participants in this process to really think about what is best for everyone in the long term. Please, please, please do not fight to win a battle only to lose the war. I understand that live streaming synchronous online instruction is not the norm and may make many people uncomfortable, students and staff alike, but these are not normal times or normal circumstances, and I would encourage everyone to be willing to stretch their comfort zone in the name of doing what's best for our students and our community. Short-sighted decision-making here could result in irreparable damage to our district and our community in the form of staff reductions, program eliminations, and reduced property values. Thank you again for your time and commitment to the district and its students and families. I sincerely hope to see Bethel Park continue to flourish and look forward to a great school year. Stephanie Silman.
Doug Sapesky, 3112 Anna Ray Circle. I'm writing in response to this revised phased school reopening plan for the 2020-21 school year. I believe that parents should have the opportunity to decide what is best for their student, and virtual learning is not the answer. As a parent of a senior child, we're completely disheartened that her last year will be outside of the classroom without her fellow classmates. Although COVID, like the flu, is a real thing, please keep in mind that the CDC recommends getting children back to school. I realize there may be parents who strongly feel that their children need to attend classes virtually. I understand that there are some who have underlying medical conditions that would make attending classes in person more risky, but this should not hinder the other healthy students from receiving their education in person. I would hope the board will consider this as an option and allow life to get back to some sort of normalcy.
Carol Janice. I think the overall plan is good. It allows for transition to hybrid and vice versa, as well as a plan for all in. My only question is why not synchronous lessons every day? Renee Shannon, 2900 Mimosa Drive, Bethel Park.
Sharon Janasek, 4314 Anna Street. I want to thank the board, the administration, and all the teachers and staff for your tireless work, sleepless nights, and constant worry about the children of our community. I see you. I appreciate you. I know how much you care about the health, safety, and welfare of students, staff, all of their families, and the entire community, as well as the education of our children. Unfortunately, the 2020-2021 school year has presented a situation that puts all of those things at odds with each other. There are no solutions that will appease every faction or work for every person's unique circumstances. Each possible solution creates other problems for other areas in an infinite whack-a-mole scenario. I understand how difficult your situation is and how changing something affects 10 other things and creates 20 more obstacles and objections. I don't think people realize that sitting in front of a screen for 6 hours a day, 5 days a week is a horrible thing to ask children to do. It's disturbing and draining and inefficient for adults working from home. Why would it be better for children? I don't think people realize that most cyber charter schools provide 1 to 2 hours per day of live instruction most of the day, and the work is asynchronous. I don't think people realize that it's ultimately better to have half the class in a virtual setting so that each student has a greater chance to be seen and to be heard and to be engaged. I don't think people realize the public school districts are not funded to or equipped to or charged with providing childcare, and that you're doing everything you can to help ease that problem. I don't think people realize that all children in our country are going to be behind the arbitrary measures we instilled when there wasn't a pandemic. And that for children with disabilities, children in poverty, children in rural areas without broadband, children who are learning English or whose adults don't speak English, we're already way behind most students in Bethel Park and will continue to be. Trust me, if your children aren't in these groups, then they were already ahead and will continue to be ahead no matter what happens. I don't think people realize that our district must work hard to resolve the inequities the pandemic has created for students in those groups, as does every other district, and you are working to do that. While I'd like to think that you are all being treated with respect, decency, and dignity, I doubt that's the case tonight. That breaks my heart. It makes me feel embarrassed at how quickly this situation has divided our community. We only have one school district, my friends. Let's work together to keep it going, keep it positive, keep helping one another, and keep being BP proud. It really is going to be okay. Sharon Janasek.
Kerry Carfano, 2621 Bethel Crest Drive. Hello, board members. These are not rhetorical questions. They deserve answers. Please respond logically. Thank you. Number one, like other parents, or even worse, a single parent, how are we expected to go to work and provide for our families when our children are at home? Number two, how do we afford a babysitter, tutor when we are at work? We can't afford this extra cost. We're essentially paying for a service and only getting partial service. Three, do we get school tax money back for every day our children are home to offset this burdensome cost? Four, if the children will be in school some days, why can't the children be in school every day? If masks work, why do we need to distance them? If distancing works, why do we need to wear the masks? If both work, then why can't they be in schools as normal?
Michelle Kramer, I think that's the next one on the list.
Yeah, you want me to take it? Or you
Go ahead.
Okay. Michelle Kramer, I live at 3225 Arapahoe Road. I have 2 daughters in the Bethel Park schools. According to the CDC, asymptomatic carriers are believed to be one of the primary vectors for transmission of this disease. Since a minimum of 6 feet of social distancing cannot be maintained in our school district classrooms, it seems the option to move to the remote instruction is a natural choice to make. The district must protect the health of our students and their families, as well as the health of the teachers and the other staff who work in our school buildings. Therefore, I encourage the board to please support the proposed fully remote start to the 2021 school year. Offering an online remote education protects the staff and students from the very real risk of interacting with so many students each week. The virus challenges our community, our nation, and our world to demonstrate responsible behavior, and sometimes the responsible behavior comes at a personal cost. We must limit our plans so that others do not die or become permanently disabled. It is disappointing. Nobody would choose this option if the regular school was a safe alternative. Nobody wants to miss out on this year's school year, but we must make this difficult choice in order to protect the health of our students and the staff of Bethel Park schools. We all know that online education will not be perfect, but neither will be the experience that the students will have within the school building if we were able to apply all recommendations to limit transmission. With any plan you pick, there will be losses. But if you choose the remote option for all, those losses will not be losses of life or health. They will be temporary losses of learning that can be remitted. Yes, our students will suffer losses of experience like dance and sporting events, but we can preserve their safety, and you can protect our staff and the health of the families of our staff. I urge you to accept the full online start the school year in order to protect the health and safety of our students, staff, and ultimately our entire community. Thank you for your work on this issue. I know it has been hours of unrewarding effort that has led to sleepless nights and more stress than you signed on for.
I understand the next comment is from Ms. Willis. Is that what everybody else has on their
Yes.
agenda? I did take an opportunity to review that one, and I note that it's not an item, a topic on the agenda for a vote. And so at this time, the public comments are limited to those items, so I'd ask
Okay.
somebody to move to the next one.
Next one's
Okay.
Lisa Carner, 5654 Tracy Drive. I'm very concerned about the proposed virtual learning with only 2 days of synchronous instruction. I do not feel that the upper level students who are taking AP and honors courses can be fairly graded when they are only receiving 2 days of live instruction. Please consider 5 days of live instructions, even if it's just 15 minutes per class period, followed by independent work. Thank you.
I think the next one is Stevie Hostler. It looks like the original email was resubmitted with the address.
Yes.
I apologize. I didn't include my address. Stevie Hostler, 5741 Happy Hills Drive. Good afternoon. My husband and I are concerned for the health and safety of the children and faculty at all Bethel Park schools. The unfortunate truth is that not all citizens have taken appropriate precautions as advised by the CDC during this pandemic. This is evidenced by growing numbers and also just by being out in the community. Masks are not worn correctly in public. Parties for various life events have occurred in my neighborhood and really everywhere without masks or social distancing. The ethical and moral thing to do is implement remote learning for as many children as possible. I understand that not all children can be at home due to parents and guardians' jobs because they have special needs and rely on BP's wonderful special education staff. Children and teachers whom are high risk especially should not be expected to be in the classroom. My child falls into high risk. As a parent, it is my duty and my husband's duty to protect him. We have spent 5 months successfully protecting him from an illness that could steal him from us. If the school can find a way to have only those with absolute need to be on BP school property, then we can prevent a lot of unnecessary illness or worse. I implore you to do the right thing and save lives. Thank you, Stevie Hausler.
Okay, I think the next one is Becky Robert, 364 Church Road. Am I on the right page, guys?
Yep.
My thought is that we need to do the safest thing available to all involved, which leaves us with a full remote learning for the first 9 weeks and then reassess at that time. Our kids, families, teachers need consistency, and the 9 weeks full remote ideal will afford all of us some comfort and schedule. The students need time to dig into the curriculum uninterrupted and apart from the many quarantine in and out situations that can possibly arise. We can see in other areas where schools are going back, it's not just full, but even hybrid that is not working out in many instances. BP teachers are good teachers. They are part of our families. This is important to remember because they have the same health concerns that we do. Can you imagine what a seasoned or diabetic teacher must be thinking? Should I risk my life in person to do something I can do online? Should we risk their lives? We need to be fair and let our students and teachers take the time to be able to do what we ask them to do consistently before we throw them back into another situation. Doing hybrid right off the bat is asking them to do something that doesn't seem realistic. How can we do that without setting them up for a fall and best support them? My last child is going into 11th grade, and can you imagine the AP class and honors classes having the teacher be distracted with online, in person, with their own families, impromptu quarantines, health, life? At least if we do something that is consistent for the first 9 weeks, they will all have a fighting chance to succeed. We can always reassess and ease up, but it is way harder to become more restrictive and necessary. My heart hurts for our community. We need to remember to be patient. No one will be perfect, as there is not a right answer here. I have high hopes that we are going to band together and give it our best shot. If we do make an error, then we should always err on the side of patience, listening for understanding, and providing some grace in all situations. This will not last forever, but if we are in person and someone gets COVID and brings it home to grandma, mom, dad, teacher, teacher's family, cafeteria lady, or frankly, whoever, that would potentially be permanent. Imagine the lifelong trauma of a child figuring out that he or she unknowingly brought home to a parent and that parent led to death. Not their fault, but they won't be able to process that part. It's not worth the risk when there are other options to keep people safe. Thank you for consideration of full remote for the first 9 weeks.
Kelly McDermott.
Next one's Kelly McDermott, 2218 Superior Street. First, thank you all for your diligent work over the last few weeks. I understand how difficult this situation is for all. I am completely supportive of the 100% remote option, as my children's health will always be my first priority. That said, only providing 2 days of live teaching, whether that be for 100% remote or the 2 in-person days, is unacceptable. These children need a routine and a schedule. My youngest is entering his first year of school. Providing him with a teacher that only teaches him 2 days a week is setting him up for failure, along with many other children. How is a 5-year-old who can't read and write yet going to be educated and learn, having to be on their own for school 3 days a week? Corporations, small and large, run businesses remotely. Doctors and nurses provide health care remotely. Other schools have all found a way to teach 5 days a week remotely. Why can't Bethel Park figure this out? If a children is able and willing to participate live online with a teacher 5 days a week, they should be given that option. Our children are being deprived of a quality education by only providing a 2-day-a-week school day taught by a teacher. This is not the school district I know. Please do better for our children.
Teresa Mavrich, 5488 Library Road. Would it be a better idea to have numbered days for the students to attend? For example, A through K go on days 1 and 3, L through Z go on days 2 and 4. Day 5 would be the asynchronous learning at home. This would take into consideration when the students have a day off, thus missing their scheduled synchronous/live in-school instruction. This is the system used at the high school for labs. That was Teresa Mavrich.
with Chernecki.
We gotta figure out which one it
No.
is. There's about 3 of them
You
here.
got three, go to
She
first
has-
one?
First one with an address, but
Okay.
there's a few more coming up.
I know, she's just three total, with first one with address. Kim Chernecki, 5864 Bryan Drive. Per the Department of Education, counties with less than 10% incidence per 100,000 in the last 7 days are considered low community transmission and can return to in-person or blended instruction. In Allegheny County, there have been 566 cases for a population of 1.2 million, a 0.45% at this point. Can you please address the metrics you are using to justify remote learning at the beginning of the school year?
Jim Abergast, 621 Galway. After watching and reviewing the proposed plan, I do not understand how the needs of students with IEPs will be met while remote learning is in place. These students have gone 5 months without the individualized instruction that they need. They require and deserve more than monitored screen time. How will BPSD provide the legal supports necessary to these students? The burden of providing the specialized instruction should not fall on the parents alone.
Declan Brusowski, 3213 Postgate Drive. Good evening. I'm a rising senior this year at Bethel Park High School. I have multiple classes such as computer programming and AP Music theory that require specific equipment or services that are not available to me from home. For example, my Intro to Computer Programming class normally uses higher specification technology that is not available on the Chromebooks offered to students. What accommodations and solutions are being offered to students such as myself without access to the technology and opportunities offered with school instruction? Furthermore, I'm a member of multiple musical ensembles and activities in the music department, such as chamber orchestra, top 21 choir, Bethel Park marching band, and stage crew. All of these experiences are highly dependent upon in-person interactions. Is there a solution being explored to facilitate students' abilities to continue to create and interact while being safe for the first month of the year that is not just virtual? Thank you for your time, attention, and work to see that my classmates and I will have a successful year.
Brian Hosco, 2970 O'Neill Drive. These answers are absolutely disgraceful. The fact that you compare playing on a football field 6 feet apart to being different than walking in a hallway in your school, the implication that it is somehow safer, is insane. It was stated that we are gambling to open. Where is the science to back this up? Kids are not impacted by this to any degree different than a bad cold or the flu, and that is what the science supports. This is nothing more than a political game, and you are allowing our children to become pawns in this game. I was proud to have Bethel stand up to this and plan to open 5 days per week when I heard that that was our intention, and all of a sudden it changed. If a family has a concern, they should have access to the hybrid option. The rest should be back in class. Science does not support a gamble.
Marcia Slezak Burt, 5851 Bryan Drive. I have children in various grades, and I'm making different decisions for each child based on their specific needs. I would rather have imperfect action over inaction. Please choose a direction so administration, teachers, and parents can start working with the problems now and allow them time for proper preparation. The district needs to be focused on making sure the online option is robust. These students need to have instructions to prepare for the future. High school students have testing and are getting ready for college or entering the workforce. This district needs to provide detailed information about the online program to reassure parents. It would be helpful for parents to access to their children's online textbooks now versus waiting for children to start school. This will allow parents to look over material. The online option is going to face competition from outside cyber schools. Bethel's competing against synchronous and asynchronous cyber schools. If Bethel wants parents to stay in the district versus selecting an outside cyber school, administration and teachers need to produce an online program that uses our curriculum in which students truly learn. The online program will be used. In addition to those that choose online, it's likely that other students will end up online at some point if COVID numbers rise. A child is ill or they're exposed to COVID. The students deserve a strong online program. There should be a contact person or online forum for parents to discuss issues if the online classes are not up to expectations or working for their child. There must be consistency. A teacher may be incredibly good at teaching but not have the technical skills to present the material online. How will this be addressed? Will every teacher have posted weekly plans so parents can monitor their students' progress? Teachers are going to have to rework their lesson plans if they are online or hybrid. The district cannot wait until the end of this year to figure out what is being implemented is working. This must be evaluated throughout the year. I do not want my child on a computer all day, and I'm concerned about the attendance feature. Not every parent can sit next to their child to make sure they're logged in, and some of the advanced students may not need to sit through the class to understand the subject matter. It seems that completed work should establish attendance. If Bethel provides a good online option, more parents may choose that option, which would then allow more room for social distancing in the future for the kids that need that option. I have a question about our school libraries. How are the students that are online and in school going to be access our district books and materials? Can a system be put in place to allow access to our libraries? Can some exceptions be made to allow in-person instruction for our special needs students? Last, I want to thank Elizabeth Wells for providing curriculum information. This has been extremely helpful to me.
Next one, T. Lockard, 3916 Mimosa Drive. What was the purpose of the 2 surveys that were sent out over the summer if you don't bother to consider them? Can I expect a reduction in my school taxes since I will be doing half of the teaching for my child?
The next one, the Amelia Coletti. Okay,
Hold
it's,
on, before you read it, she asked that her name and address remain anonymous, so.
so we can't read it.
So, yeah. Right, I just wanted to catch that before you went through it and then read that.
The Lane McLeod, he had some other emails, but I don't think he had his address in there. I think this is the first one with his address.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Darren highlighted while he was
You
out.
want to read his address?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Ian McLeod, 1043 Brookfield Drive, Bethel Park. Darren highlighted while he is out and about, he has seen people not social distancing. I'd like to thank Darren for highlighting the reason parents like me are not comfortable with our kids returning to school. We cannot control people outside our environments. As for the comments with regard to the bad experience with Google Classroom, I imagine the teachers have come a long way since then. It was new to everyone at the time. The negativity regarding remote learning comes from what's past, not what's possible. Thanks.
I just want to correct it. I believe it was Mr. Spacuzza.
Yes, who
made
said that?
comment.
And I'll take credit for the Google comment.
I'll take the next one.
The next one, I already read one from that person.
Okay, I
Yes.
think the next one's Pam Bronco, 5962 Irishtown Road. Yes, we all know that in-person learning is the most effective for most students, but we are facing a worldwide health crisis. Now is not the time to gamble with our children's health. I support an online start for the 2021 school year.
Next one is Kathleen Fortier, 1053 Bell Street. I'm a mother of 3 elementary school students, one of which has special needs. I also work from home. I don't care if we are in person or online only, but I cannot split myself into 3 and manage the children all at the same time and in 3 separate grades on the different computers in 3 different rooms. If you're going to be online only, it needs to be at the parents' convenience. My children thrived during the shutdown, but only because we could do the work when it was best for each child.
Thank you. Next one is
Joe Hosco?
Yeah, we've already had a hospital.
That was
I
the
think that was-
spouse.
Okay.
Okay. Jill Hosco, 2970 O'Neill Drive. After carefully reading your proposed plans of hybrid model and remote learning, I have both comments and concerns. If the children are not going 5 days a week in person due to health hazards, then how sanitary will every other day be when the next group is in the room between days? You can clean all you want, but exposure is exposure, no matter if you have 50% capacity every other day or 5 days a week at 100% capacity. Our taxpayers' dollars for these teachers' salaries are to pay them to teach 180 days per year in person, not pre-recorded and/or partial days via online. The teachers deserve their money, and our children deserve being taught 5 days a week for 8 hours a day. 3, these children are being cheated out of learning and growing towards being taught enough to move forward into their next scholastic year by only going 2 days a week and having partial days learning online. 4, the children have mental, physical, and social needs to develop that school provides and that this plan will not provide. 5, parents are not teachers. That is why we pay teachers to teach and choose to send our children to school 5 days a week. Refer to point number 2. Therefore, how can our children possibly learn from home while looking at a computer? 5 again. We are Bethel Park. This is the best we can do for our children. Original 5-day-a-week plan shouldn't be off the table. 6, thank you all for the efforts you put into this. My comments are not to be taken out of context. They are legitimate concerns and opinions felt by many taxpayers who do not want to actively speak up. I am happy to facilitate anything I can to ensure our children get the best education possible given these horrible times we live in. Thank you for your time.
I think Kelly Chapman's next.
Kelly Chapman, 3230 Eastview Road. I'm a parent of 2 BP school students. I strongly suggest the schools to open. While I understand you don't want the parents to be teachers, the fact of the matter is we will. In addition to mine, I am sure there are more. Some students require a lot more attention, and we as parents find ourselves sitting with our children all day at the computer to help them complete their assignments because they require that direction. They cannot completely finish the tasks on their own doing. Both of my children have IEPs, and while my high school student can work, he still needs that extra help, and not being a qualified teacher, I feel he is lacking at home, but gets the best education at school. An entire other matter, more important, is my other son who has special needs. He cannot learn at home. He requires it in school. He needs a one-on-one para. He has regressed and barely worked during the spring. He will not sit at a computer and furthermore will disrupt his brother being online live with his behavioral issues, not being at the school building. He cannot focus or be a student at home. It is detrimental to himself not being in school. I cannot provide the education and interaction he needs at home. I am begging for his well-being that these children return to school, especially since these autistic support classrooms require only a few students per classroom per law, so there is definitely room to social distance. I am asking for help and understanding to listen to all of these parents' concerns as our children's lives are depending on this way of life. Being in school as they should be, it should be the parents' choice to send their kids or not.
This is Flaherty, 5469 Braywood Road. Can you please tell me what the policy will be in place? The child is ill and cannot attend school. Past year, it was 3 notes from home and a doctor's note. After 10 for the year, you were threatened with court. You are unable to send our children if they have any flu-type symptoms that can be confused with COVID. These courses.
Miss Christina.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it Christina
Murtaugh.
Murtaugh?
Mhm.
Good evening. I am writing to express my 354 Fruitwood Drive, Bethel Park. Good evening. I'm writing to express my extreme frustrations with the remote learning program. I understand and respect the fears of others, but I have been a frontline worker since day one. I have had to work 18-hour days and struggle to get both my children to do their classwork. Both my children have severe reading disabilities and active IEPs, and they are being left in the dust by these ridiculous distance learning protocols. I specifically moved to this district for the education, yet I pay taxes so I can teach my own children. I am disgusted, and if there isn't an active plan to help children with learning disabilities that doesn't involve a computer and online learning, I am considering seeking legal advice for not adhering to the current IEPs put in place. Let those who choose to teach and kids that need to go to in-class learning go, and those who are too afraid stay home. I guarantee you will have more children in classrooms than at home. We need our children to be back in the classroom so they're able to learn and thrive.
Does anyone know if McCullough Road is in Bethel Park? It is.
It's in the school district.
Okay. Casey Elphinstone, will Noontime's aide still have?
Did you get Tracy Flaherty?
Casey's job? 1410 Macaulay Road. I think he just read Tracy. He did.
You did. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that one.
Jacqueline Bateman, 1574 Lucille. Hello, have the teachers agreed to this plan, or is there a movement publicly? Thank you, Gloria.
We've already read Kelly Chapman, right?
Stephanie Ferguson.
Yeah, I can take it. 223 Micah Court. I haven't heard anything about the students who attend Steel Center Technical School. Steel Center said that the students will be bused from their home school to Steel Center on the days they attend school. Looks like my son will go to school for his trade 0 to 8 days a month. How is he going to prepare him for his future career in trade? Why are our trade school students never included in these discussions or plans?
Is that it?
This last one, if we cut it off at 10:10.
Well, I think that was the last one anyway. So I don't know.
Oh, that's right.
Okay, now we are finished with public comments. There was one public comment that will be read at the end of the meeting because it didn't deal with our agenda items. So we are moving now to business items. Mr. Scalzo, will you take the curriculum committee, please?
Yes. Under Curriculum Committee, we have one item on the 2020-2021 change in school calendar. The Board of School Directors approves the administration's recommendation to approve the change to the 2020-2021 school calendar.
I need a second. Seconded by Mr. Christensen. Any comments or questions on the school calendar? It was outlined in PowerPoint presentation at the beginning of this meeting.
I do have one quick question. If this is approved, will our in-service days that we may have used as snow days in the future, if we have snow days, is it going to push the graduation date back?
Do you want to respond? We were approved for 5 FID days. And we do have the flexibility of 5 ACT 80 days. So, depending on the impact of the winter, we're hopeful that it won't, but I can't guarantee that it will not because there's not those days. We still have a day in February, and we have the election day in May as well. So. That's the plan as we move forward.
And we also always have the vacation days surrounding like spring break and so forth.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Dobus, yes.
I do have a concern We have a lot of work in front of our administrators to get our plans up and running and to be the plans that we expect them. And I'm really thinking, I don't know if we can get it done by September 1st.
We've been meeting with the administrators. One of the key things that we were trying to do is keep as many of our dates in common that we could, such as graduation. This plan, we were only going to have 1 or 2 days. Now we've moved it to 4.5 with some Act 80 days. We're feeling comfortable with that point, and we're feeling comfortable with this calendar, and this is the one we're recommending.
So just one question on that. I mean, Jim has a very good point that we have 2 weeks before teachers are back in the classroom, and we have to have a certain level of readiness. I think I propose that, and it's kind of aligned with this, that we have another board meeting next week to get an update on the details of the virtual learning. Maybe we can get that day in a life kind of a view on how it'll be done, because, and I think it's a necessity. It has to be defined by next Tuesday, because we have to have kind of the instruction in place for staff the following Tuesday when they're in the classroom. So when they show up, they know what to do, because they've got 4 weeks worth of work to do in 2 weeks or a week and a half to also be ready for instruction. So I guess I'm proposing, I think we should have a board meeting next week to get an update on where we're at, and as well as the rest of the community. I think this is a concern that we heard throughout the community, our level of readiness.
I'm okay. I'm not gonna be here, but I'm okay.
That's why you're okay?
That way you're okay with that?
Is everyone, rather than changing the calendar at this point, is everyone okay with another virtual meeting next week?
Yeah, well, I'm not saying, well, I'm voting against the calendar, okay? In fact, I will vote for it, but to make sure that we're ready for this calendar.
Well, I thought maybe you were saying that we need to meet again to make sure we're ready for this calendar next week.
That's what I'm saying.
So we'll vote for the calendar this week.
Yes,
And
but I
then
think
next
we need to
week-
kind of make sure that we're on schedule to actually be ready on the 24th of August or 25th of August.
And keep in mind too, and I'll make this point, the administrative staff and along with the teachers can only do so much planning. We brought the teachers back early in terms of front loading the in-service days to make this happen. And so we should be able to do that. I mean, the folks who are in the best position to tell you the day in the life of the teacher and the day of the life of the student is the teacher. So we can't, if we start deciding that we need more days and more days, and we're going to start bringing back our almost 300 teachers and paying them on a daily basis to prepare, we think this gets us started. And another thing about it too is that's the whole business of taking the online, totally online, and then moving to the hybrid. So the teachers work themselves into that model.
Okay,
Teachers
I guess
understand that.
based on, I mean, that sounds good, but, you know, based on the discussions that we had before, are we even ready to roll out to the teaching staff?
Yes,
Okay.
I think we are.
Okay.
And I mean, at what point, you know, keep in mind, we've opened school, graduation was correct, for 110 years in Bethel Park. We've never asked these questions of teachers before. What's the day of a teacher look like? What's the day of this look like? And the day of that look like? Those questions can't be, even if you give us 2 months, totally answered there's a point at which you open schools, you start teachers working, you get a general guideline as to what they're doing, and you proceed. I mean, it just has to be that way.
Yeah, but this is different.
It is
This
different.
is
but
opening,
we're
this is
prepared
opening
for the
under
difference.
circumstances we've never had encountered before. And one thing that's been said here, whatever happened in the spring cannot happen again.
Yeah, and
So
the-
I want to make sure our staff and the training, we have the CARES fund who is there. I don't know how much is available to that, but I believe we can ask Doug or someone who else would answer, is that funds available to do increased training? I believe it was.
We have increased training. I think even our teachers may be in a little bit different position in terms of college should occur. The teachers have said they're ready. They'd like to do it a little differently. We have said as an administrative group, we're ready, but we want to do it a little bit differently too. That's the point we have to iron out. I don't think it does us any benefit at all to continue delaying it. I mean, if we have dissatisfied clients or residents because we're changing the model, imagine now if we start to push back school more and more.
Yeah.
I think we've got
No,
to
and
move
my
ahead.
point, I don't, my point was misunderstood, but I wasn't recommending a meeting next week to delay anything. It was actually for the other point, to accelerate it, to create some more milestones that everybody's focused on, so that, as we heard, we just got done reading 2 hours worth of, public comments. And I think that the community lacks confidence that we can actually execute on this better than we did in the spring. And so that was the only reason for suggesting it is, would we have that next level down of detail that we can, start to talk to the parents about? Can we start to roll out a training schedule for them on the learning management system so that they know how to, support their students, that sort of thing. I just think that more frequent communication between now and
I don't know.
and
I think
September.
the idea of a meeting next week, Mr. Krieger, I think it's a good idea, and I don't have a problem with that. But keep in mind, if you heard what I heard, and I was going to say 90%, 100%. We're saying, gee, you rolled out going back to school 5 days a week. Why aren't you staying with that? A few saying, I'm glad you made the change because it speaks to being a little bit more cautious. So we feel that we're ready as can be. We'll provide more detail, but there's a point at which, and the saying goes, analysis paralysis. I mean, I think there's a point at which it's in the best interest of our students, our teachers, and everyone involved that we get started. We've got to get started. And we use that time, we'll use that time to get prepared. We'll update the board next week. And as I said, when we get the teachers in, we're doing in-service, they'll fill it in. But there were no teachers, and I don't want to go on and on, there were no teachers when Mr. Wells made his comment and said, gee, we can't do it, or I'm not ready.
Right.
What they were simply saying is, we'd like to do it this way. We'd like to have this leeway. So I think we're okay.
Okay.
And there are 5 days of in-service from what I can see on here, which
That's
after 5
unprecedented.
days of in-service, you probably want to start in with the program teaching the students. So are there any other questions about the calendar?
There was a question asked about the funding for the additional training from the CARES grant. That is not included as one of the reasons you can utilize that money. So
Okay, thank you. So if there are no more questions, can you open the voting for the calendar, please?
voting is open. Mr. McGregor, oh, there we go. And Mr. Spacuzza.
Yay.
Motion carries 6-2.
Okay, Mrs. Turner, would you take the approval of resolution 100? Yeah. 2020?
So the Board of School Directors approved Resolution 100-2020 to extend the discount and face periods for the collection of real estate property to provide tax relief to the COVID-19 emergency. I believe this is what we talked about last week, Mrs. Zundel.
It is what you talked about. It's,
I need a second.
I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Christensen, second.
It is what you talked about. This basically just moves back the penalty section of tax collection. Typically, you'd have to have your taxes paid at face by the end of October. This pushes it back to December 31st without penalty for the taxpayer.
Right, and there's no, if you pay it on December 31st, there's no, you still have to pay by August 31st to get the discount.
That's correct.
Any questions about this?
Yeah, I will add one other thing. This does match what the municipality is doing as well. So that's why we did it this way.
Any questions about this resolution? Okay. Open the voting, please.
Voting is open. Mr. Spizguza?
Yay.
Motion carries.
You want me to take the next one also, Mrs. Dovich?
Sure.
Okay. This is the Board of School Directors approves the administration's recommendation to approve the revised phased school reopening health and safety plan. So this is the checking of the box on the health and safety plan. I need a
Second.
Second by Mr. Christensen. And this is the document that goes to the state. It's similar to the document that we already sent to the state, but this one now changes the conditions to reflect what the presentation was at the beginning of our meeting tonight. And so as you move through it, it clearly states things like full remote learning for 1 month, moving to a blended AB schedule for students. January 4th is the start date for a full 5 days a week for all students, depending on the current status of COVID-19. So it's a change in the plan that we approved at the end of July, and this plan reflects the presentation that was made at the beginning of the meeting. So I have it moved and seconded. Are there any comments on this?
Can I just ask for one point of clarification? If a student starts remote chooses to start, like everybody starts remote on September 1st. If the student, as we go to the hybrid method, there is still the opportunity for some students to stay remote if parents choose that throughout the whole 2021 school year, correct?
Yes.
It's written right.
I just want that point of clarification before we get
Yep, it's there.
questions. So if you choose, you can have your child go fully remote with Bethel Park teachers all school year long.
Correct.
Thank you.
I would like to ask for a roll call vote.
They're all,
Yeah, they see it on board docs. But my question is, I don't think, Connie says she's been on the phone, but she's not part of any of these votes, or is she?
Who's on the phone?
Mrs. Rule, is she voting?
I can put her back in. I didn't know she joined the meeting, so.
I'm not sure that she joined the meeting, but she said she has been on the phone. Ms. Rule, are you, have you called in? Are you on? Okay. Other questions and comments? I'm going to actually tell her.
She should be in the voting now.
I don't know if she's in the meeting.
Okay.
don't know, have you been watching the meeting? Are you in the meeting or what? Okay, well, we're gonna be voting on the, approval of the revised school opening plan. And since you're on the phone, then you'll be able to vote, okay? Yeah. Yes, yes. Just a second, don't vote yet.
So I'd like to move that we amend the motion to open remote, as is the will of the public.
Say that again?
No, we are open.
We are.
Or, I'm sorry, open hybrid. I would like to move to amend the motion that we open hybrid on September 1st.
I'm going to refer to this lister, but we have a motion and a second on the floor already. Oh, I thought we did.
Who did you have recorded?
I
a
thought
motion and
Mr.
second?
Christensen seconded, but I could have been wrong. Okay. That's
So
all
there
right.
was just a motion, because Kim
All
had
right.
made the motion.
Yeah, I was
We were
reading the
waiting
thing
for
I
a
had
second.
before.
Now we have another motion on the floor to amend the original motion to recommend a hybrid start on September 1st. And that needs a second, or it will die for lack of a second.
Okay, Bonnie seconds the amendment. Okay, any questions on that? Any questions or comments on the amendment?
Restate it, please.
Say that again?
Restate what we're voting on. We're on
We're
Mr.
voting
Nagels.
on the amendment, which is to amend the plan so that we do not start remote, but that we start in the hybrid mode.
Can I ask a question? Or do I have to vote?
can
Do we have
ask
to
a
vote?
question.
Okay. My question is the school district prepared with only 5 days in the new calendar that we did to start hybrid?
We've been planning all three models all along. Right now, the focus of the model has been to plan online with everybody. So it would accelerate that, but if that's what we need to be prepared for, that's what we need to be prepared for. But the plan that we had was to be online. It's all, kind of like the concept of start a little bit slower, then move into hybrid, then move into full. But I believe that we can make it work because, as I said, that is also been a major part of the plan.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, we're voting on the amendment. So a yes vote would mean that we are in favor of the amendment to change it, and a no vote would mean we are not in favor of the amendment. Okay, please open the,
Pam, can you repeat that?
a yes vote would be that we are in favor, you are in favor of the amendment to change the opening of the school from remote to hybrid. A no vote would indicate that you are not in favor of changing the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just make one comment? Can I still for comment? I mean, I'm going to just tell you, I'm going to vote against this, okay? But I am fully in support. If ultimately this recommendation, I think, should be coming from you, not the board, okay? And ultimately this recommendation should be coming from you, not the board, okay, in terms of how fast. But this plan, this is the way I heard it today, we could bypass hybrid and go to classroom after 4 weeks. We could bypass virtual and go to hybrid or, classroom. I think that, hopefully the board is giving you the tools to make us the right recommendation. If we come here next week and you had a revelation and said, hey, we're going back to the classroom, great, okay? But I think we got a plan right now that can move us from one phase to another. And hopefully you've got the tools to make that recommendation. and we'll
I
support
don't
you.
believe this plan focuses on the children or the community. I believe this plan is centered around what's easiest for the district, not taking into account what's best for the children or the community. And that is the board's duty within our purview to make those determinations. So,
Okay, I mean, I don't agree with that, but I agree with the idea that, you know, we should be able to change this plan very easily if the right conditions exist.
And that is correct. And actually, when I talked with the solicitor, one of the recommendations that she had for the MOU is that we pull out those target dates so that if we were able to accelerate it, we could do that.
Absolutely, yes.
So,
Yeah.
we're feeling comfortable with that, and I know, Mr. Nagle, when you say the word, if this is easy, you said the planning was easy. This is the hardest easy I've ever been through in my life. So I don't know how easy it is, and truly, we have met sometimes from early morning till 6:30 and 7 o'clock at night. And continually our posted reminder is what is best for the children and best for the community. And quite frankly, in another environment, about moving the date, I want to get these kids started in school. I want to get this process started so that our children are in school, they're moving towards a hybrid, they're moving towards full back in. So, that's where we are, and that's how we came with the hybrid to start with.
So,
Okay,
I mean, I think that, the model you put together, I think we can say there's considerations that go into choosing this plan that we can't talk about in the public setting, that factor into determining what is the option that we go. Unfortunately, we can't share that with the public, but I'm happy with the plan that you have, that it's flexible, and by all means, the MOU should not have dates in it. And we should, we presented metrics that are going to be managing this off of, tie it more to the metrics. But I'm comfortable with that.
Other comments or questions? Okay, so again, if you vote yes, you are voting to change the district's recommended plan from starting remote to starting hybrid. If you vote no, you are voting to go along with the plan as outlined and recommended by the administration. Mr. McCausland?
Voting is open.
Okay, Ms. Rule, yay or nay?
And Mr. Spacuzza?
Yay.
Motion fails, 3-6.
Okay, the motion failed, the amendment failed 3-6. So now we are voting for the health and safety plan as motioned by Ms. Turner and seconded by Mr. Christensen.
We need a second yet.
Oh, we didn't need a second? Oh,
Second,
second by Mr. Christensen.
second.
Thank you. I thought about that earlier, and then people started talking, and I didn't remember
I
that.
remade that mistake once.
Okay, so now we're voting to change the health and safety plan from starting 5 days in school to starting remote, moving to hybrid, and then to back into the classroom. Questions or comments on this? Okay, please open the,
Voting is open.
Ms. Rule, yay or nay? Yes?
Mr. Spacuzza,
Nay.
motion carries 7-2, I'm sorry.
Okay, motion carried 7-2. All right, we now move to the last public comment.
We had one come in from Ben.
Not after 10:10, we're not accepting in.
Yeah, we had one come in, I guess, for the last part of the comment.
Say that again?
What?
We had one come in at 10:48, I'm gonna guess for this public comment, or?
Oh,
did
for after the meeting? We said we're
I
not.
think it was resubmitted from before with the
I'm
address.
trying to look.
We didn't accept any after 10.
Right. I reviewed the policy too, again, just as we were sitting here and going through the comments. The board does have the ability to defer this comment until your next public meeting, which if the recommendation is accepted, it's going to be next Tuesday. So that comment can be deferred until the next public session.
I don't know why I don't have it.
Let me just check the policy and make sure that we don't need to take a vote on that. We'll just take 2 seconds here. It would be. Yeah, it's up to the, Pam, if you want to read it.
There isn't, we said no comments, so
We'll defer.
Defer it till next week, but there is one comment that we still have to read. That was suitable for after the meeting, right? So let me find it.
7:04. Public comments 7:04.
Okay, I got it. All right. This is from Shayna Willis, 5844 Monongahela Avenue. Before I begin, I know I've attempted to address the following issue with administrators, our superintendent, and the board before making this public comment tonight, but it's not been corrected. BP parents are being told that their students attend outside cyber charter. They cannot participate in extracurricular activities within our district. This is simply not true. When I pushed back after being denied strings for my oldest, who is enrolled in an outside cyber charter, the assistant superintendent relented and allowed my child to be scheduled in the strings class when I presented state law and BP policy. I thought that fixing this misconception for my child would fix it for everyone, but instead our administrations continue to tell parents that their children will not be able to participate in extracurricular activities if they don't choose BP Academy. Families in our district should be able to trust that they're getting the right answers from our administrators, especially during this difficult time. Now, despite evidence to the contrary, the district is claiming that not only can some students not participate in extracurricular activities if they attend outside charters, but that there's a difference under the law and by BP policy between co-curricular activities and extracurricular activities. I looked through every state law and BP policy and can't find a difference defined. In fact, many districts across the state interchangeably use the words extracurricular and co-curricular in policies similar to our policy numbered 140.1, which governs students attending outside cyber charters. In Bethel Park, the word co-curricular also appears to replace the word extracurricular in the high school activities manual. In years past, cyber school students not enrolled in BP Academy have been welcome to participate in activities named co-curricular such as DECA with no fight, but not this year. What has changed? Surely not state law or district policy. I'd like to think this is an oversight and a misunderstanding of state law and not a willful attempt to misinform parents while they are making difficult decisions about what is best for their children in a global pandemic. The district can't allow some students to participate in years past while denying students this year, and the district can't change the rules from year to year without explicitly doing so in written policy. Encouraging students from outside cyber charters to participate in extracurricular activities allows our district to keep some funds earmarked for cyber schools in our district and keep students connected and more likely to return to the district in the future. Okay, we actually are going to comment on that.
I just a brief informational comment. So the charter school law has not changed on this topic for many, many years. It's a well-settled principle of law that charter school students can participate in extracurricular activities and interscholastic athletics in the school district of residence, as long as the charter school doesn't also provide that same activity. But the student has to comply with all of the prerequisites of a Bethel Park student participating in that activity. And so that is what the law indicates. My understanding is that is how it's been implemented here. And the district fully intends to comply with the charter school law moving forward. So hopefully that clarifies. Correct. So the question was posed, if a particular class such as strings is a course within the school day, is that considered an extracurricular activity? And the answer is no. It requires enrollment in the course to be a part of that activity. And sometimes the course may be connected with some things that occur outside of the school day. But that is one example.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
I think that could have been some confusion as well.
Okay, at this time, we'll have anyone want to make any board comments?
Hi, this is Darren. I would like to make a comment.
Connie.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I had a hard time connecting. I could see you guys visually and hear you, but I couldn't connect. I agree with a lot of the, there wasn't a lot. I agree with, we need to provide in-person teaching for our special needs kids who really can't learn online. And I can't stress that enough. I think we need to find a way to make that happen. And if not, well, then maybe we are failing those type of kids. So let's look forward to working on that situation. I know that it deals with the teachers, the union, the parents, and the kids. Lori Sutton, Dr. Shu. It's a lot of people involved, but I think we can get it done.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. Miss Rule, you're welcome to talk. I have the phone up by the microphone. Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
Can you repeat what she said? Because
She said that Steel Center is ready to work with us and start whenever we're ready to start. Any other board comments? Okay, I need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Ms. Rule, seconded by Mr. Christensen. And you want to open the
Mr. Spacuzza,
Yay.
Mrs. Rule,
You want to adjourn, Mrs. Rule? Yep, yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Ryer.